Topic 2. Dave Chappelle recently released a special called The Closer. This special has wildly mixed reviews. There are some who believe this special is transphobic, homophobic, and a disgrace. There are others who feel Dave Chappelle is spurring deep conversations around cancel culture and hypocrisy. How do you feel? Do you think Netflix should have removed this special? And shout out to GSU for writing that. Yeah, it's time. We're gonna talk about this. Everyone wanted us to talk about it, so we're talking about it. It's gonna be a thing. We're gonna have a good time. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But we'll start with introductions. Top Dolphin.
Oh, why do I have to go first? Okay, that's cool. All right, we're doing this. All right, Dave Chappelle special. It was awesome. I loved it. And I think the things that he said about trans people, while not all perfect, were a lot of them were very a lot of them match the experiences that a lot of people have in the world. And people say like, oh my gosh, Dave Chappelle, like the things that he said showed a great misunderstanding of trans people. I always want to say that the level of understanding that Dave Chappelle showed in this special of trans people and his knowledge of their experiences is greater than 95% of Americans who are out there. I have a coworker who didn't even know trans people were a thing. We have a trans coworker, and we were like, yeah, our coworker is trans. And he was like, what does that mean? And we said, oh, they were born this. And he's like, you mean they used to be a dude and now like he didn't even know what it was. Like he never heard of the term. And like I hate that like we decide that like anybody who doesn't come out with like an 100% like acceptable view on like all of the trans things that all trans people don't even agree on, by the way, needs to be like instantly canceled.
Okay. Sig Natural.
There's a lot. But I had to attempt to keep it brief. I want to say that I also think that the special was very funny. Like Chappelle's a really funny guy. All right, he's one of the funniest men on earth, straight up. Okay, he's also very transphobic. The things he said were pretty fucking bad. From what I can tell, I just finished rewatching the whole thing, and it doesn't seem like he displays for example, it doesn't seem like he displays a knowledge of differences between sex and gender. He says things like gender is a fact. He says he agrees with TERFs. He says he is a TERF directly. Says I'm Team TERF. I'm one of those people. He compares. He doesn't directly compare, but he says that the TERFs are women that look at trans women like they would do blackface, and he says he is a TERF. So I would assume that that is what he believes it is comparable. Okay, which is just like absolutely idiotic. Just for a start. I think the special overall was very funny. He had a lot of jokes that I thought were funny. Of course, they were problematic. It's not that I probably have an issue with problematic jokes. I have a problem with a lot of misinformation. And that's what a lot of the stuff that I felt like he was spreading. He was incredibly irresponsible. And I do think Netflix is irresponsible for having this special up. Okay? And as far as the question as to whether or not they should take it down, I mean, I err on the side of taking it. The people that want to watch it either have already seen it or want to watch it if they want to.
Mr. Wiggle.
This can be hard for me to say. Before we talk about outside the space and Dave Chappelle, we have to discuss someone in this space. You may have asked why I'm here after so long. I'm here because we need to root out negative individuals in this space before we focus on, outside entities. In 2013, Signatural made a series of tweets about, nah, fuck with you, bro. Fuck with you. But realistically, I'm glad Wake the Beast is here because I remember like months ago, this man he said the funniest thing. He was talking about like Coke, the company Coca-Cola, and then he said something about like, what are you gonna do with woke capitalism when like the companies just go like, yeah, no, like I actually found that funny, and like that's basically what happened in this scenario. Is this Netflix guy was like, he didn't say found it funny, but he was just like, yeah, we have an agreement with Dave Chappelle. He's an extremely funny person and great comedian. We're gonna keep this. As per like my views on it after watching it, yeah, man, like I don't know, it fit all the tropes of somebody that is like more acceptable transphobic. I'm sorry, America's pretty transphobic, Islamophobic, a bunch of things. And this fit in the boundary of like acceptable transphobia for a lot of people, not me. So like it made people who like thought these things already feel like okay. It made them feel like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not that bad. Like Dave Chappelle, I kind of agree with him, and that's kind of what it serves. I think it was like it was pretty shitty. Like some of the humor he did was shitty. I think the world that's a little hyperbolic. America's worse for this comedy special. Me, like I can enjoy this humor and not perpetuate it. I think I'm better. I think you guys are better. You probably are like more aware of these things, so you can watch this and laugh. There's a lot of people that won't understand it and will, cause harm on individuals and say these jokes without like the humorous aspect of it. I think like promoting this is kind of like it's hard to say you'd be an ally of the trans community, but I'm not trans, so I guess like I can't really say that. That's how I feel though, and yeah, that's it.
GSU.
Jesus Christ. I have like a wall of things I want to talk about, and I'm trying to figure out what all I should just address and open. So I think that Dave is a comedic genius for sure. Like this special was absolutely amazing. No, it shouldn't be taken down. I can't remember the other question I asked. No, it's not hypocrisy. It almost should be required reading. But, but I'm joking there. But what some of the things that Dave pointed out are exactly how a lot of Black people feel about BLM. It's a movement to support our cause, but we notice that some of the more loud voices in the BLM movement have atrocious things to say. And I have friends in the LGBT, or I have people that are in relationships with people in the LGBT, and a lot of the LGBT feels somewhat of the way that we feel about BLM, where like there are just things being said, or positions being taken that they feel are abhorrent, but they don't want to come out against the community and say things because unfortunately what happened to, I can't remember her name, Dorman, whatever her last name was, I can't remember it. But what happened
Daphne.
to her,
Or
yeah, Daphne, yeah, her being bullied to the point of committing suicide is an atrocious thing. So a lot of people find comfort in the LGBT because they feel like the rest of the world is so transphobic or homophobic. And so to go against the community would be literally losing all of their what they feel support, right? So I feel like him pointing to those things, him pointing to how I think sometimes council culture specifically tries to punch down on Black people. I think it was absolutely amazing. There's like a billion other things I think we'll talk about in open, but this special was absolutely amazing.
I like how my
For sure.
man Gambit refers to the gay community like it's a place. You know, I got a lot of friends in ATL. Like
Community, what do
the
you
people.
mean?
No, you say in the LGBT and you leave it there. That's what you
Wait,
say. You say
why
it
does that?
in the
I have people.
LGBT,
I
in
said
the
I have Black
black,
friends.
in the
I said
black. I
there are
got a lot
people in
of
BLM.
people are in the black. You
Wait,
say in
wait,
the
wait, wait. Are there
LGBT.
people in BLM?
No, no, not BLM.
No, 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 no.
But yeah,
Answer the
yeah.
question.
No,
Are
no,
there,
no. But LGBT,
are there
like, but
people
no,
in
we
BLM?
don't.
No, is
That's an
BLM a movement?
identity, like black. You don't say like we know a lot of
Wait,
people in the black, right? In the
LGBT is a community
LGBT, like
just like BLM
in the
is.
It's an
LGBT community.
identity.
Sorry. All right. Never mind.
No.
No,
Sorry.
no,
What?
Don't worry.
that doesn't work.
I got time to roast you on that later.
That
All
was a
right.
good try. That was a really good try, but that doesn't work.
Oh
You
boy.
tried it.
Gambit, you need to take a second.
We'll fight about that later. Chris Cosmo.
Okay. I have two thoughts about this. One, the people were saying the special was amazing and it was like one of the greatest of all time are absolutely smoking dope. 2/3 of this was absolute ass. The space Jews joke dropped dead flat. I'm like, what the fuck is this, Dave? Like, I wasn't laughing throughout the majority of the shit. It was garbage until he got to the 2/3, like 2/3 of the way, and he got into the trans topic. And I thought it was going to be just absolutely it was transphobic, and he acknowledged that, and he poked fun of himself at it with a few jokes within that special. I think it is problematic. Top Dolphin is completely correct, though. A ton of the Black community either feels slightly up to this level or even worse when it comes to trans issues. And I think this, like where Dave was going, him humanizing the trans person that he came in contact with, him talking about this person, that positive relationship that he had, some of the things he came around on is a positive step that there's some nuance that we can take it out of that, and we can talk about these things and how we can further make these things better. He had some good things in that last part, even a little funny quips that he said, some funny jokes that he said, that some of them were offensive, and he did say some transphobic things. But him saying he's a turf on the definition of like trans people consider a turf, he is right because that's what he believes. But I'm not surprised by that because that's a lot of what the black community, especially that generation of the black community, believe. Right. So acknowledging that is the first step, and like humanizing trans people and getting to know them and like getting to know the like community and learning things is the next step. And I think like a lot of people are like can go forward and get some good things out of this. But for some reason, people just like demonize, take the special down, and like throw like Dave Chappelle away. I'm just like, that's like not necessary and it's not gonna happen. Y'all like are going too hard right now. But yeah, that's
Hey, thank you. Next, Wake.
When I was in elementary school, I remember my teachers would always start the history lesson of America with 1776. And this led me to believe that this is where Americans got their values, other Americans who were here in North America. But that's actually not the case. Your values and mine were given to us by Puritans. These were religious bigots who fled England and who came to North America so they could persecute each other, Native Americans, and of course, Black people. And these individuals practiced a sort of Christianity that would not allow them to tolerate people disagreeing with them. You had to be in church every day. And if you were not in church, you left yourself open to be accused of a witch, witchcraft, other demonry for which you were burned at the stake. This was their version of cancel culture. You were going against the grain. You are offending the status quo. We are going to burn you alive. So I have to commend Netflix for standing against this contemporary version of the Salem witch trials, in which we root out individuals for thought crime, the audacity to say something that hurts someone's feelings. In place of cancel culture, I think what would be far more productive, and I think this would be the reality if our society had high self-esteem, we would have a conversation culture where we don't just resort to cutting a man off from his living and his career because you don't like what he said, but instead we open up dialogue with this person and we say, why do you feel that way? What can I do to change your mind? Well, have you considered this? In this situation, we all win, because when you cancel people for disagreeing, we all become hypocrites. We wear a public acceptable face, but then when we are in private, we take that off and it all comes out anyway. So why not create a culture in which we can express our differences in the public, get it all out, and grow collectively, not as individuals?
Thanks.
Attic.
Sorry for the little pause there. I was still typing. As Wake the Beast gave that beautiful soliloquy. Well, so I'm gonna say this off the bat. We're gonna get heated in here. I'm just letting y'all know that now. Dave Chappelle is a cerebral comedian. And so as such, I can understand why it would be really hard for a lot of people to understand the comedy that he's actually giving, right? These same individuals would love things like Big Bang Theory because it has a laughing track telling them when to laugh. All of his jokes were freaking amazing. If you missed it, well, that says something about your mental capacity. Anyway, Dave stated that people shouldn't be able to know your punchlines, right? And I feel like he says that you should always be ahead of people whenever you're delivering your comedy. And because Dave Chappelle is such a genius and he's always talking about things that a lot of times what comedians typically do is talk about things that we haven't really understood. This time, I felt like I knew his punchlines and a lot of the trans jokes that he was going to make. I knew them before he gave them. I was delivering them. I watched it by myself before he did. And I think the reason for that is that we've been forced in this community to have interactions and conversations about the trans community such that we've understood things in a way that the average American wouldn't. I can say confidently that I've interacted with content or direct conversations with more trans people than literally my entire family combined just from this platform alone. And I'm talking extended family. And so this has forced us into conversations that we otherwise wouldn't have had. So then that means now that while Dave Chappelle is is reaching all of these new heights and these new conversations and these new like observations about this community, this is old news for us because we're being forced. So in a way, the trans community has robbed me of the splendor of this special because half of these jokes I wasn't able to really freaking get because they've been forcing me into the conversation. I can't say force, but I've been engaging in these conversations. So I didn't get the full beauty of this thing as it would have been the first time had I been watching this like the average American. But it also speaks to the greatness of this thing, the fact that I knew where he was going with these things, meaning that he's forcing these same conversations through his comedy on all these other Americans. I think Dave is also a great example of the weakness and the temporary nature of cancel culture. Cancel culture believes that it has the power to inflict great harm on everyone and stop them from being able to be successful, and try to cut off their connection to power and influence so that they can't be successful anymore. But Dave Chappelle is immune to that. He can't be canceled. They've tried. At one point, he got like a pretty much media blackout, and he continued to do his specials for God knows how long, being incredibly successful, and then was able to leverage two specials that he had already recorded with the promise of a third for $50 million, the total amount that he walked away from. Then this same individual goes and so he makes a brand new special, and now at this point, Netflix is actually the face of comedy. Does everybody remember when the whole dream was to get an HBO comedy special? That changed because of Dave Chappelle. He has that kind of power. Then on top of that, the show that he walked away from, because of his contract, they were able to produce an extra season and he had no rights to it. So when they got the redistribution rights and started streaming it on all these other various platforms, Dave Chappelle wasn't getting a penny. He called for a boycott. And like something that I've never seen before, in a contract that was already said and done, that was over a decade old, the big company capitulated and said, hey, we've done you wrong. Let's rope you back in here and make sure you're paid for your comedy and for your thing, because people probably were going to boycott. Then you have the most powerful community in the LGBTQ community in existence, the trans community, that has actually attempted to cancel Dave Chappelle over his special. And guess what? Netflix said, hell nah. Dave Chappelle said this might be my last comedy special in a while. He lying. They can't do anything to him. He's that powerful, that influential, that important to public conversation and social ideology. And I think this special exemplified that, and I think he's great. And I think anybody that's saying that they can't appreciate those jokes, well, you know, I've said everything I need to say about y'all.
Hey, all right. Oh boy. Jay, I'm sorry I have to follow that. Go ahead.
No, it was all, you guys all made really great points. And I agree for the most part. I only watched last night about, I have like 30 minutes left, so maybe about half of the special. But for the most part, so I don't think I got to like the joke.
That's the best part. Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it was, you know, it's Dave Chappelle. Like the very, very first sketch he had on national television was a blind black man who thought he was a part of the KKK. Like, he's always been brash. This is not anything new. And he's gonna do what he wants to do. You know, I agree. Like, he's never going to go away. And I mean, yes, probably once I get to the end, I'll be like, yeah, this is transphobic, this is definitely homophobic, probably. But at the end of the day, it's he's still spurring that conversation. And I don't think that Netflix should have removed it at all because of that. Because of where he is, like Fanatic was saying, like, he is actually putting it at the forefront and people are actually thinking about that. Like, now I'm seeing more articles about how Black trans youth are dying or being murdered at ridiculous rates, right? Like, that is now at the forefront of the conversation. I would say partly because of this special. I did also want to say one thing about the cancel culture, because I did agree with Wakebeast up until a certain point. I think that it is there is a line between, you know, what we can quote unquote cancel people for and what we can't. I think what they say is what is how they feel. I don't think someone should be canceled for what they say. What they do is very, very different. And I think actions definitely speak louder than words in that category. And that's my time.
Okay.
Brian,
All
wait,
right.
Brian, wait. I want you to give your opening.
I
I've
was
never
about to.
requested this. Okay, good.
Don't worry.
Wait,
Before we go to
one thing before I forgot one other thing on my notes at the end of it. It was roped in. I also wanted to mention that cancel culture literally refuses to examine itself. I recognize, and everyone else recognize, how much we've been talking about the influence of like bullying and things like that on people on the internet. We've all talked about this. This has been a really big talking point. They specifically mentioned that social acceptance is a great like support towards trans people and can lower the suicide rate. And here in this case, there was a complete absence of support. There was total rejection of this trans person by the trans community on Twitter. And then when this person kills themselves, they're almost unwilling to have these conversations regarding whether or not that could have been a contributing factor on this person's death. Now, I'm not going to say bullying alone would be the total of everything that would be that caused this person to commit the suicide. I think people with gender dysphoria or transgender people in general already deal with a lot of like societal ills and just other harms that are like associated with it. But to act as if this had no influence whatsoever, it's just completely dishonest. And it seems crazy to me that the same community that's been arguing against bullying and tolerance and acceptance can't recognize how their rejection, which I would say is the exact opposite of tolerance and acceptance, could have contributed towards this person's suicidality. I think it's gross.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna move for a fight. Like, to say that, you know, well, like, he's going to do what he's going to do, right? Like, what if it was, oh, fuck it, I can't remember a white comic right now. Jeff Foxworthy, that's the best I can do right now. Like, what if he, and he hasn't, but what if he, like, started doing jokes against the black community, right? Like, if he had done some, like, things that people considered, extremely offensive, right? Would we be so easily dismissing those jokes, right? No. Some people would, but I think a lot of people were defending Dave Chappelle, excuse me, would not. They would not. They just wouldn't. I think there is a difference, especially attacking a community, right? That is so much in the crosshairs at this very moment in time. Like, that they're being targeted on all fronts, societally, right, by government through the law, economically, in all ways. They are the targets, right? They are made to, like, conservatives pretend they're fucking, like, trans people are behind every corner. They're like the new communists. They're the new fucking communists, according to conservatives. They're fucking everywhere, right? And they're teaching our kids all about, like, how to be trans. They're gonna train our kids to trans, right? And then eventually it'll turn back to the Jews somehow, you know, whatever, right? The usual shit. But still, like, this isn't just any community. It's a community that's under siege. So, you know, you have to actually be responsible with the words that you say. That actually does matter for a person at his stature. I mean, I think Fanatic did a fantastic job painting the stature of Dave Chappelle, right? Seeing, like, how big he is in the community. So what comes out of his mouth matters. And I think that Fanatic, I think Chieshu Gambit and others maybe who might have been supporting him here have the ability, because I trust them in their intellectual capacities, right, to be able to, like, tease these things apart, the messages that he was trying to get across. And I don't think he was trying Dave Chappelle was trying to get across a fully hateful message, right? Just like burn them all, hunt them down, or anything like that. I don't think that's what he's trying to do. I think that our friends here have more than enough capabilities to understand that, to that point. I think others say, like, well, look at this guy, right, with their fucking sheep brains. Look at this guy making fun of this community, right? He is dehumanizing them. They wouldn't use these words, but he's dehumanizing them. That gives me permission to dehumanize them too. That gives me permission to attack them. You know, they aren't really women. They are men in dresses, right? They are aberrations. And so I can take action against them. I can escalate things against them, right? Again, I'm not accusing anyone here of doing that, but I think other people will, because we've seen them do exactly this type of shit. So, no, I have complicated feelings about this special. I thought it was pretty funny. There were some stretches that I thought was unfunny, like the space juice thing. I was like, what the fuck was that? That one flopped on me. Yeah, I didn't get that one. It's like
it was a joke. It was a joke about Israel Palestine.
Yeah, I got it.
It was a really smart.
And the second,
joke.
and
It
the
was
no,
just-
and the
Easy
second,
to
and the
miss.
second time he did it,
Yeah.
the
It
second
wasn't
time he did it was
funny.
supposed to be like a nonsense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't.
got the
I
joke,
think
it
if
just
you
wasn't
caught it,
funny.
it would have been funny. But I think it was way too in depth for most people to catch.
Way too
No,
intense.
And
it wasn't
on my
funny.
second watch through, I heard it and I thought it was hilarious. But on my first watch through, I
got it
missed.
the
I was like,
first
why is he
time.
talking about Jews? Like, I don't get it.
I guess I watched too much Vosh content.
Oh boy.
But
I
Oh
got
boy. Well, anyway, yeah. So I have complicated views. I thought it was overall pretty funny. I thought overall did a really good job. Had me laughing really hard sometimes, and even at those trans jokes. But it's not necessarily up to me to decide whether that shit is too far. Especially we have again this community that's been specifically targeted. Right. I leave it up to them and. With the understanding, of course, that the trans community is not a monolith, right? You can go to different ones, just like as the trans person Dave pointed out during the special. I had different feelings about him and about his comedy, right? They aren't a monolith, but I'm going to listen to them and hear what they have to say, right? Because just like Fanatic said, a lot of those jokes, yeah, I did see them coming. Just like Fanatic, I actually did see a lot of those things coming because they weren't all that original. They weren't all that original when it came to the trans community. We've heard them all before. It wasn't expanding consciousness for trans individuals and all that. That wasn't happening.
But
So,
Prime,
yeah,
that's
I
the
don't know.
point. That we understood them. We knew the jokes. We knew they weren't original because we've been in this space where we've heard all of these jokes directed at trans people. I promise you, not a single person in my family would have seen those jokes coming because the people in my family, most of them, I'm being dead serious, have literally never interacted with a known trans person.
I know.
They're exceedingly rare. So while these jokes are common to us, because we already have, I'm telling you, we've thought so deeply about this, like the distinction between gender and sex and all of these conversations. These are all conversations that everyone's going to have to make.
I'm not talking
Dave Chappelle is just
about
ushering
us.
us
I'm
into
not
that.
talking about us being you and me. I'm talking about the trans community, right? And them experiencing these things and hearing these things, right? Because those jokes have been tossed at them all the time.
I got more to say, but I'll let someone else
Yeah,
go.
sure. Yeah, so I have a lot of feelings about this. I'm not sure. Am I going to say that Dave Chappelle is some unrepentant bad guy? No, I was not going to do that. But I probably would have rethought some of these things. All right, let's start with Wiggle. Wiggle. Let's go to Chris. Let's go to Top Dolphin, Sig, Wake the Beast. Cheer. I'm gonna write this down. I've already forgotten the order. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But go ahead.
So yeah, I was gonna.
Wiggle, please.
Yeah, so I think what Dave Chappelle did was pretty insidious. He did this thing that I see in far right spaces. They do this stuff a lot, which is he talks about this individual. For us, it's a story. For him, it's a real life individual. And he paints the picture of this person who is the perfect whatever this minority group is. The person who gets oppressed all the time and just waves it off. They take the jokes onward because that's how he thinks you should be. And then that person always takes the humor and everybody loves them for it. And then that person deals with all this trauma, and then who caused them to potentially end their lives? The same minority community that fights for this. And it's he creates this caricature of this person that he thinks all trans people should be. And then they do this to us. So it's disgusting for me to see people not see that. You see them do this with black people. They say, all right, this is the magical Negro, the perfect black person who has to listen to everything they say to you. And, he's the friendly one. Why can't you be more like him? He gets all the jokes.
he's not harsh. He doesn't scold you. He's friendly, and he's the person that can best speak to us, the bigots. He's the best person for the job. And then like that's the story, the age-old story. And I thought like he has this way, and I do think he's funny. I still think he's funny after this. I just think that this work was like a mistake, but I mean it's out there. And I think that he does this thing that he's great at doing is he has his own problem as a rich black man. He has this problem that's been chasing him that he talks about since 2005. And what he does is he knows he's popular. He's this form of like populist, a comic, and people love him. So what he does is he gets this group of people to talk about this and defend him for him. And he creates this whole group of people to go out there and fight his battle for him. And he says, yes, go after this online Twitter trans community. There's some, prominent streamers on this platform that do the same thing, higher up than this space. And then he did something similar. He's like, yeah, maybe they caused, the suicide. Maybe, fight that war for me. And then he talks about this, and it's almost like it's almost despicable. It's almost despicable of every single instance with a trans individual, or sometimes they weren't even trans. It was the mother of a trans individual. They just bring up something to him, and it's annoying. It's annoying. But the person who lets themselves be made fun of, that's okay for him. And then remember what he did at the end, where he says his last words. He says, I just want to ask you one thing. Don't punch down on us. Because that's what he really cared about that day, is he wanted to talk about how in 2005 they said they punched down Dave Chappelle punches down on black the trans individuals, and he does that, and it annoyed him. So he looks at the that's what he said. He said he did this skit in 2005.
He said it was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yes, and then it goes into like the tweet, and then the tweet specifically talks about like, punching up and punching down. And then there he says at the end, don't punch down. And it's because this guy was slighted. And then he wants to get a bunch of people to take his take up the mantle of the argument that he has in his head. He even has a Freudian slip in the special. A lot of individuals like Dave Chappelle, they use certain terminology when they refer to women. They'll just say bitches. Obviously in this space, it's common. It's like it's not like it's common in his communities or whatever. It's not like necessarily even a black thing. So I would say maybe it's a hip hop thing, what have you. And then he refers to like dudes as niggas with the A for all you people in the chat that like to cancel. From beyond that, there's a Freudian slip when he refers to like trans individuals. He says these niggas. And I just noticed that, and I thought it was funny. Like Joe, I think the guy is like clearly like a piece of shit. Doesn't mean he can't be funny. He's a funny piece of shit. But I can acknowledge his work and say, wow, this was a shittier piece of work than some of his other work. Do I think his special shouldn't be up? No, that's Netflix's decision. And like I think, yeah, leave it up. Leave it up if you want. It's getting people to talk about the issue, what have you. But I think it was a mistake on Dave Chappelle's part. Personally, yes. But he's all the more richer for it.
It's gonna be, yeah, he is gonna be richer for it.
Fanatic, you're so right on what you said earlier about people who aren't ready for this. You were
100%. Really quickly though, Wiggle, you keep saying this thing sarcastically like it's not true. Admit this one way or the other. Do you believe that the Twitter harassment that Daphne received could have been a contributing factor in her suicide?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so why do you keep saying that so sarcastically every time?
It's not sarcastically, it's the fact that he brings it up. The same individual that in the special himself says that there's nothing that this individual cared more about than their daughter. But obviously there's something else they cared more about if they killed themselves, Fanatic.
Oh my god. Okay, sure. So just to be clear, so I wrote this correctly because it seemed like you were saying that Dave deified Daphne and he directed discussion downstream, delivering the disgusting, disappointing trans Twitter towards his constituency. And I don't think that that's necessarily true whatsoever. What Dave did was he pointed out something that's absolutely true that you're willing to admit, and I don't think there's a single person on this panel who would ever disagree with this. Dave absolutely. Daphne's suicide. The Twitter hate that they received was an actual actual contributing factor. If you
This is
agree with
laughable.
that,
This
if
is
you
laughable.
wait, I'm sorry,
This-
it's laughable. The thing that you the thing that you just agreed to is laughable, insane.
No.
Now, if you
It's
agreed,
laughable.
if you
It's
agreed,
laughable
hold on,
because of this.
if you agreed
I'll
to
let you
that
finish.
statement, thank you. If you agreed to that statement and you believe that it's true, then it's absolutely insane to me that you can say, well, Dave Chappelle talking about it now becomes problematic. Either it's true or it's not. And since you agree it's true, then he's pointing out something that actually needs to be discussed, which is that cancel culture is incredibly selective. He also pointed out within that, and this is the last thing I'll say on that real quick, and then you can respond as much as you freaking want to, or anybody else. The thing is, he also pointed out that it is really crazy that they are totally okay with canceling some people for some things and some people for not. Dave Chappelle made all of these jokes about all of these different communities, and they had little to nothing to say about it. In fact, the only conversation that's really being had right now is his attacks towards, or what they called attacks towards the trans community. No one's talking about anything else. He had an entire special where the average butt of his joke was black people for God knows how long, and they rewarded him as handsomely as they possibly could, gave him some unprecedented deal towards $50 million that he walked away from. We had no problem with that. It's the same way how everyone else he can do all of those things, and I understand that he's a black person that gave him some leeway. But within those jokes, he also makes jokes about women. He makes jokes about white people. He makes jokes about literally everything. And there's never this much outcry. But the second he makes a joke about trans people, then all of a sudden there's this crazy outcry. It's nuts to me.
Fanatic, hold on.
Yeah,
I gotta ask.
I
I know you're talking.
Don't worry, you all get a chance. We're all gonna get a chance. Don't worry. So wiggle, but then we got to move on.
Yeah.
The reason why I think it's laughable is you fell for his trap. You fell what he wanted to like. Is suddenly it's the trans Twitter that came after her and is the result of this. So how many other people might have come after this person? But suddenly it's just the trans Twitter. And how would you even know? It's such a large space. There are individuals that are probably trans that attack this individual who's also trans. But suddenly it's the trans Twitter. That's the reason why a trans individual killed themselves. And so that's
not
why
what
it's laughable.
He said the LGBTQ community.
So
And
okay,
I'll just
the
hold on,
LGBTQ community.
we got to move on. So we got.
I'm not either of those things, and I thought it was egregious.
We got to move on, and we got to because we got so many people. And don't.
Yeah, but you didn't attack Daphne.
Oh boy, let's go to top. Wake, Sig, GSU, Chris. You want to hand up? All right.
I thought it was second after. Wait,
were you?
After
Yeah, I thought it was
after
me.
Wiggle.
It might have been. Like I said, I completely fucking forgot. All right, so Chris. All right, sure, why not?
It's Chris and me. Yeah.
I didn't want to go too much into Daphne's story. He actually brought up Daphne before this special. He talked about her, and like it wasn't just somebody he like glorified as somebody who take all his jokes and didn't talk back. He talked about her being able to joke with him, talk about him too. Like it was like a thing that he had with this person, and it was like one of the first people, like trans people, we actually had like a positive relationship with, and like that was helping him grow as a person. This person ended up committing like suicide 6 days after that special that he had her open for. Right, that's an issue. I'm not saying that's on the LGBT community or trans people. Like, and he said on stage like that not even had that much of an like an impact on it. It might have a factor, but not that much of an impact. He doesn't know what went on in her life, right? So like, I don't want to like keep like badger on her because that's like a tragic story, right? But it was still a positive influence and a positive like person in his life. And like that could like lead to like a positive thing from the special for people who are watching who don't have that like that relationship in their life. They don't have trans people to relate to or to like to speak to or like to get their perspective on things or humanize them. And I think that was a good thing that like Dave did. But what I really wanted to get on talk about is a nuance in joke culture and like the Black community, right? And like growing up, when you like you hear jokes or you hear comedy specials or you're joking around with your friends, you're roasting each other, it can get hectic and offensive like crazy. And I think a lot of like especially white people when they watch this special, right, when they hear these types of offensive jokes, they're just not used to that level of unrestrained, like no restraint when it comes to these jokes towards everybody, right? And then when it hits a particular community, and like especially for the trans community, because they don't feel safe enough for these jokes to like to be out there, right? They don't feel safe enough for this. And I think that's something like Dave Chappelle should have kept in mind, right? Some of those jokes like Ryan, I thought they were funny, but I was just like, no, like this, like you have to be more strategic. You have to be like, you have to know that they're going to feel really like they're going to feel terrible about this. And I don't think he fully understands that because he's not fully entered into this space. Right?
Shit, dude, he's one of the most known comedians. Of course he
I'm
knows.
talking about the LGBT community. Like,
Oh,
he's
you're saying like Dave Chappelle wouldn't know how they're gonna react or something. Like he hasn't been making
the point. He understood exactly how they were reacting.
No,
That's
I'm
part of the point of the special.
Yeah, like one big like.
Are you done?
Like,
Chris,
I don't know.
Chris, are you done? And then
you're
top
like-
you next.
you're
Anyway.
like a step behind.
Okay, Chris, finish and then top you next sandwich.
Yeah,
Of
you're a
course,
step
outrage.
behind.
Of course, outrage is the thing. I'm talking about is like they're not gonna if he wants this relationship to grow, or he wants like the LGBT community to feel better about him and like himself to grow in this situation. The way he went about it, like yes, he wants to include these people in these shows because like it's includes everybody and normalizes everybody. But at the same time, you're talking about a community who does not feel safe whatsoever. Right. So their idea when they hear these jokes, you think like they're just too soft. They just can't like they don't understand this like comedy situation. They have a thing to deal with that is just far beyond. And I didn't like how Dave didn't address like trans community, like trans people in like black and like other minority communities. He really focused on white people, and I understand because he has a problem with white people. Black, I mean, of course, but like
he explains this. He says that his problem, if you look back at everything, is just with white people. Yeah.
Yes, but when he speaks about these things, he has to also know that like minorities are included in this, right? There are also minority trans people and things like that, and they also are affected by these things. So
They're coded, but the entire time he codes them as white, and that is like one of my major issues with this is that he codes the LGBTQ community as white. He even says like the LGBTQ community, they're minorities until they want to be white again.
That's because the LGBT is just like the women's movement, and the white people are who's put. We had a whole fucking panel about this. The white people are put at the forefront, and that's the purpose. That's the reason why the movement is gaining as much ground as it was. If there were only black trans people, or most trans people were black, we would not see this level of capitulation to the community. This is exactly his point. Y'all are literally missing everything that he was trying to tell.
No, Gambit, I'm well aware. Okay, that's not a new thing. Saying that like, oh, the trans community, the white, the LGBT is white facing, right? Like, no, but nobody missed the point. We know it's white facing. Okay, it's not about missing the point of the word. Understand? We know that white privilege.
So when you call out that black people exist, it's like duh, but that's not the point of anything that he's saying.
But you didn't miss the point of what I was saying, right? That he
I didn't.
He didn't make it like strategic enough, and he also ignored the existence.
Like,
absolutely,
Chris. Wait, so hold on. If I can summarize what you're saying, you're basically saying he could have done a better job just highlighting the fact that the trans community was multiracial.
No, when he makes these jokes about like trans people, right? Or when he like says things about the trans community that involves like this whiteness, right? He's just involved. It doesn't like he's like including all trans people in that. So
No, he did not. No, he did not. He very specifically directed it towards the white trans community because they're the only ones that have this type of privilege. I don't know how you guys are missing it. Again, he might be a little bit too cerebral for some of y'all niggas, but he literally, when he made the reference to "Ain't I a Woman," that was to highlight the fact that despite the fact that black people might share some of the struggles with these things, that there is a white privilege even within these marginalized communities. Ain't I a woman? Basically, I'm black, but I'm a woman too. So I experience these problems that you guys are fighting for, and I should be a face of it. So, but then he's demonstrating that the white people were like, no. Let's not mix these two. Let's be our own group because that's a whole nother thing, aka intersectionality. And he demonstrates this when he talks about how he went and he spoke to, I hate spoiling this, and for anybody who hasn't watched it, please just get the hell out.
No, stay.
I know. You're right. Stay. You're right. We about to
go to Fanatic Stream.
Good point. You'll be able to watch it. I won't ruin the jokes. I'll just say it in a different way. But when he talks about how, like, all of a sudden, them people were able to throw their gay or their trans issues to the side and become white and have access to those police officers. This is the point of it. He's absolutely demonstrating that white trans people or white gay people have an extended privilege, just like white women do. White women are the biggest benefactors of affirmative action. But guess what? You have white privilege. You can say there's nothing new about it. I don't remember. Show me right now any other thing that's directly talking about how white people have white privilege even within the LGBT community. Show me that, because that's not at the forefront of these conversations.
in the feminist movement, it was in a whole thing.
No. We get the
There's-
feminist one because obviously ain't I a woman? In the LGBTQ, I was careful with my words, nigga. In the LGBTQ community, show me where that's been the forefront of the conversation because I haven't heard it, I haven't seen it, and I interact with this on a regular basis on the platform.
Hey,
Have
Fanatic,
you?
Fanatic,
huge.
Fanatic, I don't know if you ever watch. I don't know if you ever watch a lot of ContraPoint stuff, but she often says that, "Hey, I'm a white passing trans woman, and that's why I'm alive. That's why you put me out here to be the essentially the spokesperson on YouTube for trans people." She mentioned that a lot. But
She has. Okay, that's great.
We
So
hear
then
about what
so
you're
it is happening seldomly. You're right. My bad.
We talk
But,
about.
but something that we're missing is that like I feel like we're all like inundated in this like online community where like we've all talked about trans issues before. I had a great conversation with Fanatic about trans stuff the other day. I mean, we are at the point, right? Like I'll compare this to like math, where we're doing like I don't want to say like trans calculus, but we're doing like trans fucking algebra, right? And Dave Chappelle goes up there and he like misdoes like a differential equation, and we're like, let's cancel this. Meanwhile, society's out there still trying to figure out what that 2 + 2 is for, right? I feel like I understand that, like, yeah, people need to be responsible, but there's like levels of responsibility, right?
Some
like,
bullshit.
If we were to go back, like, hold on, wait.
He's
if
rich.
We go back, like,
they practice these skits. He has the ability to reach out to communities. Like he wanted to say that. It's like Gambit.
I wanted to let Top
reaction.
Dolphin finish. I
didn't say he wanted a reaction. I said that he wanted to call out the things he wanted to address in spite of the nonsense that y'all are saying that y'all are doing.
The conversation we have right now, Dave Chappelle wanted people to do this. This is part of why he's one of the top comedians. He wants this. He wanted these discussions.
I mean, or he saw the issue that he wanted to address, and this is a result of it.
Top, finish your point.
Yeah, so like my point is, like if you compare this to any other, like you want to compare this to like black people, right? If you go back like to when black people like just got freedom and we were preaching separate but equal, we weren't like we probably wouldn't like down like or bring down someone who's like, yeah, let's support the black people, but like ignored like the problems of like systemic racism that we exist today, right? Like the very like really tiny like minutia of the problems that we have today. Problems evolve over time. There are different depths, and like sometimes to engage on something on like a certain depth, you leave out some of the nuance, right? It's something that happens when you talk about things. Sometimes when you explain something to like a child, for example, you can't you have to ignore the edge cases and the weird shit and the complicated shit and just explain it in a very simple manner so that they understand it. And this is kind of what Dave Chappelle's doing. He has to, I mean, I don't know how well he understands the trans community because I don't know Dave Chappelle. I don't pretend to. I don't do this thing where people like Wiggle and people like Chris, where I have to like put my like project my narrative of what I think he's thinking in his head when he's trying to do all these things.
Yeah, because you're a worse person for it, right? You're a worse person for it.
Wait, really quickly.
Sure, okay, whatever you say. I don't have to do this. I listen to the words he says, and I realize that like he's probably dumbing some things down, or maybe that's just where he's at. But
Top Dolphin,
he's
can I still man you
like
really
a level.
Can I still man one thing for you really quick? Because I think what you're pointing out is absolutely perfect, and I totally 100% agree with it. I think tell me if this is like a great summation of what you're also saying. It seems like right now people are mad, us in particular, and a lot of other people are really mad because they've been having these conversations and they're at the calculus, but you literally cannot learn calculus unless you get some of the basic conceptual underpinnings of the base level mathematics. So Dave Chappelle, being in the circle he is already like starting out at like addition and multiplication and all those things, and these are like the very basic levels of this conversation, and we're mad because he could not actually have a conversation at the calculus level because that will go all over everyone's head. He has to start at the base level and start building from there because that's the only way these conversations can develop. Is that fair?
I mean,
no. You got
and to finish off, he doesn't claim to be like some expert on this subject. He's not making like an educational. This is comedy. Right? It's and comedy has always been like a really good space to explore ideas.
But he's an expert on comedy
experiences.
He said he's the code of comedy.
Oh my god! Okay, yeah, because he's an expert on comedy. He automatically needs to be an expert in everything that he ever talks about.
And making comedy, yes.
All right, well,
get out of here.
Well, hold on. Let me just. All right. So this is Top off, I think this whole like math metaphor we're going into is just absolutely stupid when you apply it to Dave Chappelle and what's going on. Okay, this man is damn near 50 years old. He's rich as fuck. He got paid tens of millions of dollars to do this special. He practiced it a lot. He probably prepped it for literal months. Okay, he damn sure could do some easy fucking research. He can call any fucking trans person that he fucking wants in his fucking thing, and he could have got him, talked to him. Easy. Hold on. You're saying,
can we let him finish? No, let Sig finish.
You said he fucked up a differential equation. Well, no, it's more like he said 2 + 2 = fucking 7. When he said, J.K. Rowling said that all that she said, this is exactly what all she said was gender is a fact. That's all she said. That's bullshit. That's absolute misinformation. And then he repeats it, saying that's absolutely true. Gender is a fact. He says it completely serious. Okay? There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for calling yourself a TERF, saying I agree with TERFs, saying, TERFs, they just associate this sort of thing with blackface, and saying, more or less saying that he agrees with that take. That's the take that he sees from this.
Oh, you guys just like missed it. Holy shit.
Wait, hold on. I'm not even missing shit. How is this is what he said directly?
Wait.
Everything he just said that directly.
Oh my, you do understand that like when people do comedy, the whole reason that comedy works is because you don't directly interpret the words that people use, right? That's like the whole thing that comedy is, right?
Okay, Top, hold on. So like with this whole comedy thing, right? This whole comedy thing, it's just a joke. Don't take my words.
It's just a joke.
Take my words directly. It's just a joke. Like, come on, we've all argued with Nazis, right? Like,
because I have a note written down here about this because one of the things that he specifically
let
does,
us hear your note,
as he establishes himself as this trans-hating TERF person, right? And then he often uses that to elevate trans people in certain situations, right? So he often, if you look at the special, something he does, he says, I'm the guy who hates trans people, but even I can see that like this is something that they struggle with. Or I'm the guy who hates trans people, but even I can see that like this kind of thing is stupid.
This is asinine.
I completely understand. You guys aren't cerebral enough for this shit because like he does a lot like all of these things are like really in depth and intentional, and you guys just missed it. Honestly, maybe it was extremely irresponsible because you guys are everyone is so fucking dumb that they can't engage with the content, so everyone's just gonna think it's racist or transphobic, right? Honestly, because he should be canceled because everyone's too fucking stupid to engage with this argument.
I gotta get more of these takes. I'm finna jump off a fucking building myself. Okay, because like seriously, guys, like it's not that I understand the things he brought up, like the trans bathroom bill. Oh my god, he said, oh yeah, that was fucked up. Oh yeah, he brought up the things about all these sorts of things. Oh yeah, that was fucked up. I'm telling you, Dave Chappelle, I'm trans. I understand what he was doing there. What about the other shit? When he said he agreed with J.K. Rowling, when he misinterpreted her point. Okay, when he said he was a fucking TERF, what about all that shit there, Top Dolphin? You're just kind of ignoring the shit sandwich, picking off pieces of the fucking bread and eating it. Okay, what's going on?
You just missed everything I just said.
You missed everything.
No, I said.
He literally addressed all of this, and you missed it again.
Okay.
Not only did you miss it from Dave, you missed it from Top. Like, what is this?
I guess we're too cerebral for you too, Sig.
Okay. All right. Look,
Cerebral,
we'll go to Wake at GSU, Chris and Michael.
To say I'm a little shocked and surprised that so many people are upset by what Dave Chappelle said. My generation was raised on South Park, Family Guy, and The Simpsons. And if you've watched South Park, then you know that very few things were off limits on that show. And I think that early exposure to contrary ideas, early exposure to being offended, having to deal with being offended and get over it, was helpful in our adjustment to stable adults who could tolerate someone not liking how we feel about something. I think it's a bit of a commentary on society when we have to turn to comedians, court jesters for social revelations like this. We used to have gods and prophets that did that for us, but I guess we don't believe in those anymore, do we? But I want to play devil's advocate for a moment and just point to the fact that we might be completely misreading what happened on stage. For anyone who's ever been the new guy on a job, this is something that men typically do with each other. For anyone who's ever been a new guy on a job, it's not uncommon that you are not initially accepted into the fold. Typically, it takes a little while. The group has to figure you out. They got to look at you. You got to eat by yourself for a couple of days. But then one day they invite you over to the table. It's not always easy to know when this happens, but generally this happens when the group begins to poke fun at you. One day you're sitting here, the people are sitting there and they start talking about your shoes. This seems like abuse. This seems bad, but what they're really doing is they are collectively accepting you into the fold. And it's quite possible that Dave Chappelle, by virtue of criticizing and making jokes about so-called trans people, is merely helping us to normalize the existence of these persons. So I know right now it might seem shocking, but look down the line 30, 50 years. Do you feel that this conversation is helping to normalize the existence of this group of people?
What? I mean,
Wait,
look,
Mr.
okay,
Chappelle,
look,
I
look,
said
look.
that he was getting at that.
Just to say, to make a joke. Look, like when white people were humiliating black people through like minstrel shows, were they normalizing them, right? Like, hey, white kids, black people exist, right? And maybe you should think deeper about it. I don't think necessarily. I mean, maybe I think that's you could do that. I think there was a way to do that. I'm not sure he did that here, but I was gonna say one thing to something you said earlier, right? Talking about exposure to contrary ideas and how that's important. So in another context, we've talked way long time ago on All Black Everything. We talked about how there was this one incident where a father kept his kid, right? A black father and black mother kept their kid basically from every bad black experience they could, right? Kid goes to college, like he is walking by himself, truck full of white guys runs through, right? Like starts yelling like the N-word and shit at him. He gets scared, freaks the fuck out and runs away, right? And that's because this is his first time dealing with that. I think there is a value into understanding these things, that there are people who hate you throughout the world, right? That people who just don't like your existence because you're black, you got to be tough. But I don't think that like trans people, they already get this, right? The world reminds them all the time. Dave Chappelle isn't opening their eyes to a contrary view. No, like their fucking governors are. Their governors are where they tell them to stay the fuck out of this bathroom, right? And that you can't be a part of these sports, and that you're some sort of fucking deviant that's going to corrupt the children. They know these things. So Dave Chappelle isn't some fucking prophet delivering this message for us.
Perhaps I can ask this question in a more direct way. What percentage of the people who watch that stand-up are having conversations like this for the first time?
I mean,
what do you think?
But you could say that about fucking anything. Then, like anything.
Nah, you gotta give him. It's a significant amount.
But no. But like, yeah, sure. But like, anything can cause a conversation, right?
Wait,
like,
hold
on. It allows you to excuse literally anything. Oh, well, they're having a conversation. Are they productive conversations?
That's true.
Are they actually arriving at instant truth? Did he give them some sort of starter message to really like chew on, right? Or did he give them a whole list of trans stereotypes to work off of?
Thank you.
Okay, so listen. First off, none of us are psychic, so we don't know exactly how productive these conversations
Okay, then you'll
are.
have to bring.
But I remember this exact same talking point, specifically regarding the kneeling for the national anthem by Colin Kaepernick, and people kept asking, well, "What's the purpose? What does it actually do? And it's like it causes and forces conversations, and we all knew the conversations were beneficial. Now we have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Black Lives Matter became a worldwide trending thing. It raised the consciousness about these issues. That is the benefit. And he literally said this in his last stand-up before this one, where he specifically said, Daphne told him, man, you make all these jokes and some of those things normalize some of black culture and things like that. Maybe your jokes about us are normalizing us. He's well aware of the benefit of that. We're also aware of how we've like given those same that same extension towards, like I said, the kneeling. So I think it makes all the sense in the world that these jokes can be looked at in this way. Conversations are beneficial, and we can only hope can only hope that we can actually engage with other
What
like-minded
a
individuals
trash take.
that within these conversations.
Garbage
I hear you
take.
saying it, my nigga. I don't give a fat flying.
Garbage take.
Hopefully, even if these people are starting off from a place of bigotry, it is absolutely normalizing the fact that trans people exist, that they have to that it is something that they're going to have to contend with. It's not entirely foreign. You have to recognize trans people make up literally less than 1% of the freaking population. So the vast majority of us don't know trans people. Something has to start these conversations so that there can be more normalization.
And it doesn't have to be jokes at the expense. And to compare
not all the jokes were at
and
their
what he
expense.
did, whatever, and to compare Colin Kaepernick and what he did, right, which didn't reference anyone, right, was simply a symbolic act, right, to jokes punching down on a minority community, right? Those two are the same thing. No, that's ridiculous. And you wouldn't accept that. That's a ridiculous comparison. If someone else had said that about something else, you would have shot it down for that because you're better than that. That was fucking right? So no, I don't accept this. And you're like, oh, there's 1%. Yes, I know. They're a tiny amount, which is why it's fucking crazy. Why our entire political conversation is focused on them, because they are enemy number fucking one. So yes, people know, but parents don't know. I don't have any fucking trans friends, but they talk about trans fucking people. Why? Because society is doing it, and society is denigrating them left and right. So yeah, you can do this, right? I'm not saying that you can't have jokes about. I can't. Hold on,
this is insane.
I would say you can have jokes, and you don't have to necessarily be positive jokes, right? We can have fun with each other. Like, there are plenty of jokes that are great, that are pointing out ridiculous parts of each communities, right? About the Asian community, about Native American community, whatever, right? There are plenty of jokes that do that. You can. Is that what he did? I'm not so sure. GSU.
Bro, this is insanity. The reason why a lot of people talk about this is because if a lot of people are afraid that aren't Dave Chappelle, that if they say one thing wrong, they'll lose their entire livelihood. So these things are really real. These are real conversations that need to be had. And the idea that we shouldn't have political attention on trans people, that's the purpose of the LGBT. Like, what do you mean?
We had it before Dave Chappelle.
It's because a lot of people are discussing it and trying to figure out where they land on this. And Dave Chappelle is giving people like an insight on where he lands on it. He literally tried to humanize the trans community. He literally hired her to do his shows to expand her exposure.
He's got a black friend. Yeah, indeed.
His community. This is absolutely stupid to act like this thing isn't absolutely positive. I can't understand it.
He's got a black friend.
I mean, like, hold on. I think that there's better examples. Hold on, I just want to say there's definitely better examples than what Dave did. Okay, there's definitely better examples of like doing this. If you want to talk about, think of, is it starting conversations? I would say absolutely sure. So I guess like anything that can start a conversation can potentially have a potential effect or a potential positive effect. Sure, but it didn't need to be in this way. It didn't have to spread literal misinformation. Okay,
give me an example of a better example. You're saying there's a better example. Who, where, when?
There could be a better example. I'm saying.
Oh no, not that there could be. You said there are. You said there are better examples. Name it.
ContraPoints did a video on trans.
Well, I would say, hold on. I would say Caitlyn Jenner. Hey, I would say Caitlyn Jenner coming out straight up. And they're coming out. No, not the shit she did after. I'm saying, Caitlyn Jenner just coming out and doing her thing was definitely a better example of just pushing trans people to the forefront than what Dave Chappelle did. Yeah, sure. Okay. Hell, I would even say Caitlyn Jenner winning Woman of the Year probably made a lot of people start talking about this.
No, I feel like that was negative. But hold on, while that is negative, I will give you that, Sig. You're right. I would say Caitlyn Jenner coming out absolutely is a better example. Not a better example. I don't even say better, but it is another example that was probably even more whatever. She was at the cover of Time magazine and all these sort of things. So yeah, that was doing it as well. However, despite the fact that that is true, I would also say that Dave Chappelle is also positively contributing, and I would also point out that even Caitlyn Jenner, that thing in and of itself, it just showed us that trans people exist, but I don't think it ever got into any conversations about any of the nuance, and that's what Dave Chappelle did. That's distinct from it. But you were absolutely right. Caitlyn Jenner is better.
We got
enough fanatic. Hold on.
We got to be quick because we got people waiting. So hurry up.
Okay, for this idea that now there's also this idea that obviously trans people, particularly white trans people, obviously can punch down on black people. That's totally a thing. But they can't punch down on men like Dave Chappelle or DaBaby, for example. Okay, they can't punch down on these wealthy people that are like ahead of the whole thing. They can't get them down and cancel. Like, J.K. Rowling is doing fine. She's living in a fucking castle, completely rich. She hasn't lost anything. All right, she's still gonna get all those deals because Harry Potter is tied to her name, and it's tied within pop culture. Okay, these people that Dave Chappelle brought up, he didn't bring up a single example of an actual like this idea of like black people being punched down on by trans people, like and that being actually something that like actually like worked or got them to actually kill us. Like he only even brought up an example when it was another trans person, a white trans woman, for example, okay, where that was a thing where that potentially could have been a contributing factor. All right, his whole narrative about like his people, his tribe, as he said, being punched down on by the LGBT community. Okay,
So
The
it's
the
something
appeal
that
to the
let's go.
baby
Let's
was
go
to
to.
also show how
Let's go to
many
Chris.
other people have
Let's
lost
go to
their
Chris and
entire
Lingo.
livelihood.
Don't worry, you'll have a chance to respond to all of this. All right, so Chris.
Yeah, please don't lump me into the people. Like, I get like when Dave brought up like the turf thing, what he was doing. Like he was pointing at himself, saying, "This is what I believe," and like because like this is what he's grown up with, and this is where he's at in this situation. And if he listens to what J.K. Rowling says, and he agrees with that, then by definition, what you all say, I'm a turf. I guess I'm team turf. He eventually goes on to poke fun of himself when he brings up I'm a transgender comedian multiple times in the community, like in the jokes. I get that. What the problem is, and I don't think he's malicious in this. I think he's just like he was neglectful of how much hurt like this could cause. That's my issue, right? Like even though he was like trying to be heartfelt, he was bringing up a situation that was personal to him, and he was trying to like you said, trying to normalize these things.
You're
I don't think
missing
he
it.
did it in the best like way at all. And like, yes, he brought up racial issues, but like he did all these things. I don't think this is perfect at all. Like somebody brought up at the end when he talked about the punching down thing. Like, like really, like they're punching down on you, like because you're like the only like black person, like even trans people are punching down on you.
They're
Maybe you can
punching
say
down on all the people that can't be him, the people that are canceled and lose their entire livelihood forever.
the
Those are the
baby,
people he's talking
the
about.
baby who's still
Not
working and
not
like still like
not
who like the people
everyone else that's
Ooh.
not the rich and famous.
who his people like what black people are
This
getting like canceled because of the LGBTQ community, like of normal people. I'm not talking about these like famous people who aren't even getting canceled because they're still working, they're still making
that were
tons of money.
listen,
Like
dude, there were 3 people that I talked to trying to get them to come on this panel, and they were afraid to come on just because of what could happen if they said anything negative about the LGBT. This is hilarious.
people
This is
do this all
literally hilarious.
this is ridiculous because like we do these
This is
panels
not
all the
ridiculous. This is
time where people
reality.
say negative things about the LGBT community and they're still doing panels. It's still up and like they're still fine until this day, right? That's not a thing. And I don't know why like people like try to like fake this fear, or like maybe they really got this fear. Maybe it's some some panic they have in themselves. But like this isn't something that's happening on a regular basis in like normal like life. Right, you have like somebody like the baby who says some crazy shit about AIDS on in his concert. He gets some dates canceled for shows that he's doing. What happens though? Like those dates gets canceled. Some more dates come up. He does another video. He keeps making money. He moves along. He does an apology, right? That really wasn't that great of an apology to begin with, right? And he like just gets to move on with his life. He's fine, right? And nobody's really even talking about that much anymore now that Dave Chappelle brings it back up, right? Again, I don't think there's like this is like everything about this is completely negative. There's no good to be taken out of it. But let's not act like this is the second coming of Christ. This wasn't like the most perfectly put together set. This wasn't like this was all like sloppy and all over the place. A lot of these jokes sucked from just a funny standpoint in general. Like you can be
Okay,
offensive, but be funny when you do it. Like
Chris, this
be
is
clever.
so
Like
bad. Please stop making an appeal to perfection. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but that's not enough.
not
Let me
even
ask you.
perfect. It's shitty. Like
I
garbage.
hear you.
Like
I hear you say that it's going to go down as one of the most successful stand-ups to date. I
of course,
bet
it's
you.
Dave Chappelle.
Right, because that nigga's a genius and it was funny. Now, let me ask you a question. Did he make the distinction between sex and gender in his stand-up?
No, he
Yes, he
Yes, he
did.
did.
Yes, he did. He absolutely. Yes, he did. He
when
absolutely said like
he
he
break down the
mentioned.
point where he said,
He mentioned that gender was something that someone that chose to identify as, and he said that sex was something that was assigned at birth.
I don't remember that part, but that's not. I didn't have a problem with that.
Okay, I know you wouldn't have a
Okay,
problem with that, but hold on. That in and of itself is that
It's
not
gigantic.
immediate? Is that not immediately bringing attention to probably the most important fact considering
What did I
transgenderism?
just say? I just
Hold
said
on,
that
hold-
there's good things to be pulled out of this, especially
Okay.
when it comes to like the involvement of like Black community and the trans community. things that people can learn from this special.
Sure,
I
no,
said this multiple
but that's
times.
not no,
but
no,
like,
but that's not that has nothing to do with the difference between black and white. That just has to do with literally what is the essential, the quintessential fact of transgenderism, and he highlighted that in his platform.
that's great. That's why I said they
all right,
shouldn't
as
all
long
be
as
just
we're-
thrown out.
Okay,
I
as long as
still
we
think
all
there's
agree that the
trash
most
things in
important quintessential fact of transgenderism was discussed by Dave Chappelle in his stand-up. Okay, then we're good.
I would
Okay,
argue.
I don't
Hold
care
on,
about
Fanatic.
that.
I would
Sorry,
also
hold on, we gotta
contradict.
go,
Hold on. I
wiggle,
think that
wiggle,
he contradicted.
wiggle,
All right,
wiggle.
yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I have a few points. One is like I like the idea that like because you get a Dave Chappelle special, you're somehow like, you know, cerebrally on another level or something. It's laughable. It's like you think like Slavoj Žižek is sitting down and he's like, "Oh, the Shell special is out. Let me like sit down and get my next volume, understand philosophy of it." No, you're average. If you found a Dave Chappelle comedy funny, you're average. Everyone finds him funny.
We weren't
That's
talking
why.
about
That's how
him.
markets work. That's why Netflix offered him money because the majority of people find him funny. Thank you very much. Then beyond that, like we get the humor. Everyone here gets the humor. We're relatively funny people. We get the
It's not
humor.
the humor that we're saying y'all are missing. It's all of the other points, and that's why it's
Yeah, I find it
critiques
I
that
find it
y'all have.
ridiculous that you can stand up here and say that I've spoken to so many trans individuals in the last year more than the average person, and then you still have these dog shit takes about it. Like it's ridiculous to me to acknowledge. I think it was like Fanatic acknowledged it's like 1% of the population, and then you're saying, well, now the conversation's out there. But who's having the conversation? If only 1% of the population is trans
Everyone
individuals.
is.
Yeah. Everyone.
Everyone who watches
99% of
special.
people who are not trans. And who are they going to take? They're Dave Chappelle
Wait,
listeners.
we want people that
all right,
aren't
have a
trans to
conversation with
acknowledge
Yeah,
trans
and
people in their
guess
reality.
what? Guess what? What did he do? He primed them to the individuals you don't want to listen to. The woke scolds and the people that are going to tell you stuff.
turfs.
The people that are
What the-
and then
J.K.
he told you
Rowling.
and then he told you the
That's the
individuals
great-
that you
wait,
do
wait.
want to speak to. You
You
want to
missed
speak to
everything. That's
Daphne.
the great thing.
You want to speak
the
to
point
people that
is there are loud, atrocious, terrible people at the forefront, but there's actually don't.
There you go.
demonstrate all
He
their
said
humanity
it. There's
because
loud,
there
atrocious people at the forefront. There you go. That's your belief.
Sure.
That's your belief.
Opening.
What
I'm not
forefront? Twitter?
Wait,
Twitter?
is that not a
understand.
fact?
This is what you don't
No.
understand.
No,
Most
it's
people
not.
that interact.
No,
No,
it's
this is
not.
what you don't. This is what you don't
The
understand.
loud,
Because
offensive
I had
people
this
at the
same
forefront
experience.
of the
My first
LGBT
interactions.
community.
My first interactions with the LGBT were like pretty atrocious. And then as I interacted with more people,
Have any
I
of them
started to
said
see,
things
oh,
that got them
shit,
canceled, like
there's
the baby
actually some base
recently?
people here.
Really?
And my first
Are they-
interaction with a black
imagine-
person is when I got robbed. I mean, yeah, I get it. No,
Yeah,
it makes
so
sense.
like you guys speak of
Is it
well, Dave
special at all to
Chappelle.
you guys? Is it special at all to you guys that like Team America can make an entire like thing in which they're seeing that everybody has AIDS, which is like what was a really homophobic song, and you know Team America was a South Park thing. Yet the baby gets canceled for making a single HIV comment. It was a different time, and it's crazy to me. But do you think that maybe white privilege could have any impact on that? Do you think if there were do you think if
Yeah,
the baby
Fanatic,
had
I
made
think-
those same statements back in the day, do you think that maybe he might have been canceled, or there would have been some some backlash for it? No, there was no backlash.
Back then,
Fanatic,
black
how many?
community-
Hold on. Fanatic, how many rappers were saying the F slur back in 04 when Team America dropped? Come on now, in their
Sure,
songs, they weren't getting, nobody was getting canceled for that shit.
Sure. The F slur. I don't really even know that many that were actually saying that word. I mean, Eminem. I remember him saying it as well. So I guess yeah, everyone said that. But specifically referencing AIDS is something that was like gay or something like that. I don't remember many of them doing that. Do you?
Back then, during comedy specials, hell yes. I don't know if you watched like a lot of them back then, but they like when they brought up the gay community, right? They like had some really crazy offensive jokes. Also, like they were funny as fuck. I laughed, yes, but looking back on it now, right? I can see it like a gay person seeing those things, and like that can be like messed up. But back then it was a different time, right? It like we weren't like so socially aware about these things, and this wasn't in the public conscience. It was just
That's fair. Okay, that's fair. And then let me ask you one other thing. Do you find it interesting at all that he made a joke similar to what the baby did? Remember where he said he punched them right in the AIDS?
Yeah, I think it was a low blow.
And wait, hold on. All right, sure, I can give you that's a low blow. Let me ask you this: how many conversations are had about that statement Why is literally every conversation about transgenderism? Are we going to pretend right now that transgenderism isn't punching down in some ways on the rest of the communities? That they have unprecedented political power because they dominate the political discussion right now?
What the
We have
fuck?
I don't agree.
I'm sorry,
Oh my
you
god.
don't agree with that?
They're
I-
talking about
I-
removing trans rights from different. They're talking about segmenting trans individuals.
don't got
How
no
is that
power.
empowering them?
They
That's
have
like
no
saying
power.
wow, that's like talking about like at the
So
time
if
of
Dave Chappelle-
slavery when we're
if
talking
Davey
about what
said
we're
that, he
doing
wouldn't
to
have
our
been canceled?
slaves. Well, black people are being talked about. What are you talking about? They're so
No.
powerful. They're being talked
No,
about.
not only are they just being talked about, they're literally, if we just Google right now Dave Chappelle, you will see just nonstop hate articles on him. They literally stormed
You can see the
Netflix's business in
opposite.
order to do that. Wait, no. If I Google right now, which ones are going to think do you think are going to be at the top? Which?
Go to YouTube. And
No.
you go to,
If I Google right now, which one's going to be at the top?
I don't know. It depends.
Oh, so you're saying
right?
YouTube is going to
There's-
Google? Okay, all right. So as long as we're all aware that Google, if we Google it right now,
Who's
that the
Google?
vast
This is like
majority of
a
articles-
dude. This
that
is
the
like a
vast
TQ
majority
or
of
something.
articles-
Like
that
the
vast
radical
majority-
trans
that the
community
vast-
at the top of our government.
That the vast majority of articles right now are all decrying what Dave Chappelle did and are painting him as some sort of trans-hating person, even though he clearly isn't. And
The
that
threat
is
of trans retaliation.
that is the dominating narrative. And if you can see that you do not see even close to as much towards anything about gay people or whatever, no one was decrying those things. It's is absolutely
they
dominating
were,
the
they're
entire
just not as
conversation.
many.
Are we right? Am I right or right? I mean, am I right or am I right? Tell me right now that the trans conversation is not dominating the narrative regarding Dave Chappelle, and almost nobody is talking about anything regarding gay people. And
Actually,
the
there was
Is that
actually
translate? Hold on, do articles translate to political power? Like, honestly, does this
those
is
are
like
two
Does
different-
when you're on Twitter.
Those are two different points. I mean, I can point to several trans affirming legislation that have happened all across the freaking country. Like we
as
know
a
that
response? Hold on, Fanatic, as a response to the massive wave of trans disaffirming legislation that was going on because of the big panic against like, you know, they're transing our children, they're going to invade the bathrooms and all these things. All these things are becoming like predatory things about people preying on women. That came first. Right?
No, the first thing that came was Barack Obama literally threatening like schools after schools started allowing it. Barack Obama literally threatening that if schools didn't allow for trans people to use the bathroom for the identity for which the identity that they claimed, then at that point, he would deny federal funding. That happened in like
Because-
2012.
Is this
Because
the height of
because they
trans
weren't.
issues to you? Is
2014?
like trans are just fighting to use bathrooms?
Oh,
to
there
you,
we
man?
go. There goes Wiggle again with that
You didn't
appeal
have
to
to.
perfection.
Because
There goes Wiggle again with that appeal to perfection. So first, it's not happening. Now, when I point out how it exactly
No.
happened, but that's
You're-
not
you
enough, though.
believe-
That's not
you
the
believe-
height of the issue.
you believe
Wait,
there's-
more things that
you believe that there's wide-
I've actually just made the statement that there is all sorts of trans-affirming legislation that has been on the books that we've witnessed, and now you say, when I point it out to you, you say, well, that's not the height of the issue, though. Freak out of here, nigga. I see you, buddy.
First and foremost, right? All right. There's legislation that has it so that if trans individuals come up to an individual, that they have the right to self-defense against them if they're trans, and that existed well before Barack Obama was probably even alive, and that still exists in certain states. Outside of that, I want to point out to you.
You're mischaracterizing that completely. You think you can just run up and punch trans people in certain states?
No, I just said
That's how you
self-defense.
just
If a
presented it.
trans,
You said
Is
if
that-
they come up to you, you can.
wait.
just punch them.
So
That's
when
what you
Dave
just
Chappelle does it, it's okay. But if I do it, this is how I
What
present
did
it.
Dave
This
Chappelle
is funny.
do?
Go on.
Dave Chappelle didn't-
Go
Dave
on.
Chappelle didn't lie about a law. What law did he lie about? Because you just lied. You just said that we have
No,
carte
I said
blanche.
self-defense.
No.
Pretty
You just
quickly.
said that we have carte blanche to be physically aggressive to trans people in certain
No,
states. What state?
no, it's based off of sexual situations. When you find out that an individual is trans, you have the ability for self-defense to commit harm on said trans individual. That's what I'm saying. Thank you for letting me clarify if that's what you needed. I thought you were cerebral. I thought you were one of
I got you. Well, yeah, we're both cerebral. Can you link me that, please? Can you link me that?
Can I
need-
finish my statement? Can
All right,
finish
after
my
you
statement?
finish it, I thought you were. He had just interjected, but it's fine. After you are, will you link me that?
Fine. All
Thank
right,
you.
I will. Then, okay.
now that we're done with this little, like rage that you guys have, I'm saying, Fanatic, that you believe that there's this height of political power of like trans individuals who are getting their messages heard widespread across America, and there's retaliation that's being done on other people. It sounds pretty, pretty weird. And then at the same time, simultaneously, you see that, oh, well, there's not enough black people in positions of power in this country, and black people are not be getting their messages heard. How come we don't have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? How come we don't have all of these things? But then how many trans people are in positions of power in our country? So how do you like simultaneously believe both these things? Huh? Like, how do you believe that trans people have this large amount of political power?
Of little intelligence. Here's how I would do so, right?
How many trans?
Oh, ye of little intelligence. I'm responding. Shut the hell up so I can finish. You already asked your banal question. So the answer to it is, what I would say is, if we can look and compare that there is trans-specific legislation that seems to run up the freaking ladder and get passed, yet almost any black exclusive legislation we've asked for, literally none of it has been passed. That's why I would say. That's why I would say. That's why I would say they have power when you can compare direct legislation between the two.
No, you gotta prove this. No, do it. Prove it. Now we're doing this, right? Prove that shit.
I do have it.
Okay,
so wait.
There has been a mountain. Hold on. There has been an actual mountain of legislation against the trans community just last year. There was a mountain of like, they get what they want. What?
Sure.
What about the fucking equal rights?
So let me make sure. So the thing that you're asking me to prove right now, I just need to find any trans-specific legislation.
No, not any. No, not just any.
Oh!
No. Because what I said. Maybe listen to what I said.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Okay.
Positive trans-specific legislation.
No. Did you hear what I said? I said there was a mountain, right? You can. I'm sure you absolutely can. Like, I know there's some localities. That have passed like pro-trans bills. That's the thing that's happened, right? But on state levels, they've been attacked again and again.
Okay.
We understand this, right? So yes, like if for your statement to be true, there also has to be a mountain, right, of legislation out there, or show me some sort of study, right, some overall study that's been like keeping track of this legislation back and forth, right? That says, yeah, well, we've seen a lot of anti-trans bills and whatever, right? But the fight is on, right? There's a massive pushback. This is actually happening, and actually successes, right? That's what I would need to see for this claim.
So this is unfalsifiable now, because so
what?
When I'm sorry, I made one simple statement.
It was a bad statement. I know.
I'm sorry. It's really simple. Let's follow this here. Now moving the goalpost. The simple statement I made was, there is trans-specific legislation that they have been able to pass. I can't find any black-specific legislation that has ever been passed, like, for a while. I mean, I'm sorry, in the last like 20 years. Now, what you're doing is moving the goalpost to there's a mountain of anti, so you need to find a mountain of pro. My point is, there is pro trans legislation, despite the fact that they don't have people in our Congress, in our legislative body. So even though that's true, they still have enough influence and enough power that they can get direct legislation passed, yet black people cannot. Sounds a little bit more powerful than to me. Now, do you want to move that goalpost more, or do you want to admit that what I'm saying is true?
You want to say?
I ain't admitting shit, bro. Like,
Wait,
okay, which part do you disagree with then, Wiggle?
I'm saying right here, I don't know how you can stand here and tell me that the LGBTQ community, specifically trans individuals in this community, have more power politically in the United States.
So you're not talking about the part. Do you disagree with the statement that I'm making that there is trans-specific legislation that has been passed, yet there has been zero black-specific legislation that has been passed? Do you agree with that statement? Yes or no? It is the crux of my argument. Yes or no?
Hold on. I will say that I don't like a black-specific legislation. There might have. I don't keep track of that. Like I don't know. Like I literally.
Okay, I'm sure you
no.
don't.
We had the Breonna Taylor bill, didn't we not?
Unaware.
Oh,
then
the
you're
We had the
unaware.
Breonna Taylor bill,
Okay,
didn't we
Breonna
not?
Taylor.
But you are aware of trans-specific legislation, right?
In some localities, I
point.
guess. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so you are.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but
So my
hold on,
point is
but that
they
doesn't
have
prove
enough
any fucking
political power
thing. It
to do
literally
that.
doesn't prove anything. It literally proves nothing, right? Hold on.
All right.
That doesn't
Fanatic, I
prove
would
it.
say-
That
I was-
doesn't mean that. Sorry, someone else go. Fine.
I was gonna say I don't think that's a good aspect of measure, right? Because when it comes to like when you say trans-specific legislation, you can say that anything that talks about gender when it comes to bathroom, like these are a lot of issues that I think a lot of people locally, so on the state level and even on the federal level, haven't really considered and everything, right? So like when you're talking about like recent legislation that specifically targets things like gender and gender identity, I don't think that's a good gauge of like political sway necessarily. Like I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the ultimate measure of that fanatic. That's what I would argue.
No, the thing that would be the ultimate evidence of political sway is that if you really look at it, okay, sure, I will gladly concede to you that the trans community is like a super minority. We all know this, right? But it's obviously evidence that they have. Wait, you don't think that the trans? Wait.
What do you mean by super minority? Maybe we have
in the sense that they make up literally less than like 5% of the population.
I thought you said
they're
super.
small.
You said super small. I thought you meant like super.
Yeah, as in small minority. Yes, minority.
I missed that.
Oh,
It's an
super
amplifier.
minority. I get what you thought.
Sorry.
I get what you thought.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
get
an
what you mean,
amplifier for minority. Okay,
sorry.
so it's really, really crazy. Like that, we have to look at the fact that even though they like literally make up 1 to 2% of the population, if we look at trans in and of itself, I think it's actually like 0.3% of the population because they're even a much smaller section of the LGBTQ community. But so they make up such an insane small portion of the population, but it's obviously indicative of the fact that they have alliance. They have very powerful allies. The fact that they can get any legislation passed, yet when they make up such a minority position of the minority of the population, right? Do you not find that like these things are anti-corollary? The fact that they make up such a tiny percentage of the population, yet they can still get legislation passed, is indicative of the fact that they have very powerful allies, which is part of their political power, right?
I mean,
think it's
And Dave Chappelle would say that the reason why they have that is because there's white individuals in that group, whereas black people don't have that. That's why we have significantly less clout legislation, blah, blah, blah. That's that's a part of his whole point.
We have to look
There's
at
also
like,
the other
hold on.
part.
Do you think that fanatic? Okay, so like, do you think that like that's the reason? That in the 1960s, when like in the 50s to 60s, when the Civil Rights Act was getting passed and everything, just do a little example, right? If you were to do like something between like the last like 10 years from like 1965 to 1955, so that's like, do you think that in that period that's indicative because of all the legislation that was passed? That's indicative that the black community had some very powerful like allies and friends and stuff.
No,
would you say that that is
actually,
proof of that?
No, I would
You
not.
say that's not.
I would
It's
not.
not.
And yes, I'm saying it's not. And the reason why I would say that is because I'm very well aware of the direct causal relation between violence and those civil rights bills being passed. For example, if we want to look at the 1967 Fair Housing Act, right? Like 1968 Fair Housing Act, that came right after the long hot summer of 1967. We have literally some of the legislatures themselves stating, if we want our streets to be safe, we have to pass this legislation or we will never find peace or safety again. There was a direct correlation between the violence in there. It wasn't indicative of necessarily them having political influence in that way. It was just people being scared out of their freaking boots and saying, yo, we better do something. That's what it was.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so you admit that it's totally likely that the trans community doesn't have very powerful allies or very powerful friends, and there must be something like it's likely that could be the case because you admitted that it exists that movements like that can get passed without that. Okay, like shit can get passed without powerful friends or powerful allies in the community, right?
Well, okay,
because the
but
civil rights thing
like
is an example of that.
I don't like this appeal to ignorance, right? Because what I'm saying this is the direct thing that we can say is directly correlated. So that's what I would say. You're saying, okay, so then there's just a possibility that something else can be it. So now I'm saying that there's possibly something else, even though I'm pointing directly to something, and you're just saying, just anything but this. Come on,
But it
man.
can't. But it doesn't need. Hold on. But it doesn't need to be that. It doesn't need to be this idea.
I'm sorry. I
I
hope you don't feel like it's a win for me to say that it's not logically necessary that the only thing that could pass this legislation is political power. But I would
Fanatic,
say,
I'm not fanatic. Please, you don't have to use the debate bro shit. I'm not just looking for a win.
it's not about debate bro stuff. It's just
I'm saying. You're assuming
such a ridiculous argument. Even if
idea.
there's no nefarious intent on your part, I just want this to be stated very clearly. Like it's vacuous to make this statement that political power isn't the only thing that can get legislation passed. However, I am willing to concede that point. Now, obviously, political power is probably more influential. Is the likelihood what's causing pro-trans legislation, and I don't know, unless you have something else to point to, like I provided you in 1967. Then, unless you have something else to point to, I think it's reasonable to assume that there is political power from the trans community right now. LGBT
I would say
community as a whole.
Go ahead.
I would say something akin to probably like media representation.
Let's go to
like that, but like some.
Let's go to Wake. Have your hand up. I thought okay. And then Top, and then Chris.
Jay Cook.
Jay. Sorry, Jay. Did you have your hand up? I didn't see. All right. So
I did.
Why don't we go to then Wake, Jay, Top, and Chris. We're on a level 2 hype train, guys. Want to help out the channel? Sub, gift bits, gift subs. All that helps us out. All that helps us continue on with what we're doing here. If you're enjoying this content, now is the time to support. Please help out the channel. 2.5 minutes left. Let's see if we can get to level 3 hype train. All right, go ahead, Wake.
I'm presently being called away on affairs of state and family, so this will have to also be my closing statement. And I thought it would be appropriate to close with a riddle. Can anyone here tell me what's 31 feet long, 7 feet wide, and 3 feet tall?
My penis.
We were all thinking it, but you had to say it.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, buddy. I have no idea. Go ahead.
These are the dimensions of the portion of a seafaring ship that typically held black chattel slaves. I'm saying that 70 human beings were packed into a space 31 feet long, 7 feet wide, and 3 feet tall. In fact, to go along with that, I want to read to you something that Thomas Clarkson said, who was an Englishman who lived at the time when these boats were being produced, and this is how he described them. He said, being stowed, then in the manner thus described, they soon began to experience the effects, which might naturally be presumed to arise from the situation. In consequence of the pestilential breath of so many confined in so small a space, they became sickly. And from the vicissitude of heat and cold, of heat when confined below, and of cold when suddenly brought up for air, a flux is generated. And by flux, Thomas Clarkson means diarrhea or dysentery. Dysentery, of course, being diarrhea plus blood and the mucus lining from your digestive tract. And what he's saying is that our ancestors, yours and mine, were packed up into the small box like sardines, and this was their fate. What I mean to say is that our ancestors began beneath sea level. So who exactly are they punching down on? Fish and whales? Maybe some rats and some mice that had stowed along on the ship as it moved across the Atlantic Ocean? The reality of our situation is this. Even as a so-called trans person, you have the ability to do exactly what everyone else on this planet is doing. You can choose, if you wish, to walk outside of your home in the same body that your parents gave you when you were born. If for whatever reason you choose to alter this appearance or change your identity, I hope you're making a decision that you can live with. But the fact that you can make a decision eliminates you from any comparison to Black people who have never been in a position to keep their Blackness secret or limit who knows about it and who treats them accordingly. I believe, gentlemen, that like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all the other great Black leaders who came before us, that we really stand at the vanguard of society. Because what have Black people been in America? We have been the people who have tested the meaning of America's word. In the beginning, America said what? All men are created equal, but it didn't really mean that, did it? Who has made them mean it? Us. your ancestors, my ancestors. And I believe, gentlemen, that in the future, we might lead a better return to Africa, but not through the Middle Passage. This time, we'll take the high road. That's my time. Good night, friends.
Oh boy. Good night, buddy.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, Wake the Beast. You've dropped us. Oh boy, it was something. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to deal with that one later. But thank you so much, Wake the Beast. You can find him on his own channel, Wake underscore the beat, Wake underscore the underscore beast, because he wanted to make that as fun as possible to type. All right. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you later. All right. And let's give Jay Cook, Sonata, you wanted to maybe get an outro too. So do that. Yeah.
Wow, what a guy. What a guy. No, Wake the Base, it was a pleasure to like be in his presence. But like, no shade to me, but was I not being addressed? Because he said gentleman like twice. And I don't know. Anyway, not the point. I was like, your opening was so beautiful, and then like some of your points at the end I couldn't get with. But overall, I think we agree. I'm pretty sure we agree. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I also want to talk just close on it, because I know you guys are probably going to keep talking about this for a minute, but the political power part, I just want to address, like, I get what you're saying. I completely understand what you're saying, but it's like, to me, the ratio based on population, yes, is unbalanced. However, it, for some reason, I can't make that connection. And I think it boils down to, one, we've been, as a people, yes, at this fight a little bit longer. And I think, and maybe this is also agreeing with you, so forgive me, but we've been at this for our rights and for, being treated equally longer, in the public sphere, in law, legislatively, like we were talking about, right, political power wise, than the LGBTQ fight, right? So I don't get how you can say that there's more political power if we're still making, like, there's no, like, it's not like apples to apples, right? It's oranges to apples to pears, and they just don't connect. Like, you can't.
That we're a larger population. We've dealt with the problem longer. Things like school to prison, like all of the issues that have been documented, policing, everything's been documented. Evidence is astronomically clear. But the fact that we don't get specific legislation to fix our problems, you don't think that means that we have less political power?
I don't think it's equivalent at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Chris just said. I don't think you can compare the two, is my point.
You can't say one group has more political power than another?
No.
Would you say you can't say, well, the white people have more political power than black people?
Yes.
Yes, you can't say that.
You can say that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you've acknowledged that you can look at political legislation that's been passed and say whether or not one group has more or less political power. So you can do that with white and black, but you're saying you can't do that for black and LBGT. Why?
Because they're not all white.
They
That's
don't have to be all white. Why do they have to be all white?
Because in order for this to work, if you say
no, Chris, what he's pointing out groups. He's pointing out groups, and so yes, like while one of these groups was racial, now we're talking about two different types of groups. One is just a collective body, which is a race, and a collective body, which is LGBTQ. They're two independent groups that we can easily say. And you're telling me that you cannot say that the group of overall, has a bigger dynamic or has a bigger advantage, maybe, or a bigger amount of power than the Black community? We can't possibly measure these two?
No. I can
What were
I
you
can tell you
saying?
why if I can get a
What-
chance
I don't
to
even
talk.
know. That's not a working brain. I don't know how do we interact
You
with that.
couldn't
I
say
can
whether
give
men
you a reason why if I can get a chance to.
you wouldn't say
Okay, let
men
me close. I actually do have to go in like 15 minutes, so let me just close out. And I do also want to keep having this conversation, but I personally have to go. My name is Jay Cooksnada. I stream on Twitch, and you can follow me on Twitter under the same handle. I haven't been doing a cooking stream in a hot minute, but this Sunday I'll be in the kitchen. I don't know what I'm gonna make yet, but we'll be in the kitchen on Sunday. If you want to join me, yeah, that's pretty much it. Prime, thank you. Gambit, Fanatic, Top, Sig, Wiggle, Chris. Let's go next Thursday. I'm
gonna
here.
be there on the cooking stream. That sounds erotic to me. Pick that.
Bye.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Good night.
Bye.
So Chris, so you're saying you can't compare different demographics? This is weird, but I'm going to explore this.
Let me.
Oh, wait. One quick question though. Would you say that you can compare the political power of white men to the Black race? So these are two different, right? Like this demographic
Can I
is gendered
go down the road
and racial. No, go ahead.
I'm going to go down. Like, this is the reason why I believe this, right? The Black community, like was said before, has been at this fight longer and has gotten laws passed passed some big legislation towards like our advancement. Right now, we're getting to the point where we're fighting for bigger things, right? The harder things to fight for. While like trans people are getting like bathroom bills passed in like blue states that are, of course, agree with this thing. It's not something national, right? These are small little victories of like under a massive mountain of attacks that they're getting, right? So if in a blue state, like in the majority of like people like have in that state agree that this like shouldn't be a thing, that this should be holding them back, a bathroom bill, like out of that, like everything that's gonna get passed easy, right? But if we're talking about Black people fighting for these police issues, the things like that, where they're like trying to hold police precincts to account, or just like the policing system in America in general to account, that's a way harder fight to like have in general, right? It's a way bigger fight to have. So these small victories the trans community may have in these pockets of areas isn't an indicative that they have more political power, right? That's just the situation we're in right now. They're not comparable, right? That's the way I feel. Like I see it. Like they're like we're fighting two different battles, and like they're at the start of theirs, where they got like these small little things passed, where in some states their kids can fight or they can participate in sports that they identify with their gender, right? Only in certain places, and it's getting snatched away in others, right? This is like fights going back in that area, but like this isn't indicative. But
can you name a single Black specific bill that's been passed since 1968, which also, by the way, wasn't really Black? But that's fine. I'm just going to pretend it's Black specific. Can you name
that? Doesn't work, because what bills were you trying to pass, and how hard are those bills to get to like pass?
Why are those bills hard?
Because you're fighting the entirety of the system, right? Of this country.
It's because these issues
how is the
affect
trans
white
bill
people.
not doing that?
What, hon? Are you talking about a federal trans bill? Like what bill are you?
Like a federal level.
Yeah. What? I'm sorry. This is a federal level trans bill.
Show me anything even at the state level.
No. Are you talking about a federal pro-trans bill? What trans
No, I'm talking about statewide. Across the country, we've seen all at the state level so many pro-trans bills.
I'm sorry. I don't understand what point this proves, though. That's why I don't get.
This proves that despite the fact that Blacks make up a larger portion of the population in literally every single state, we can point to several Black-specific legislation, or we can't point.
If you want to,
the trans-specific.
Let's assume. Okay, hold on. Let's assume. Hold on. Let's assume. I'm trying to fucking engage with you right the fuck now. Stop crying about it. Holy shit. Let's assume that there is none, like no Black legislation, like whatsoever.
Wait, you haven't made your opinion clear. Can you say whether true or false you think there is a difference in political power, or whether you think black people have more? Can you make a statement and then defend it?
Let me finish. You'll figure out
I just
what
want
I
to
think.
understand.
You'll have
Yeah,
to
there
wait
100%.
until.
There 100% is a difference in political power. Black
Yeah,
people
let me
all have fucking
exactly.
more. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. There we go.
Okay.
Let me finish my fucking statement. You'll understand where I'm coming from. So, let's say that there is zero pro-black legislation, and like I don't keep track of this. I'm like not making a statement here, but let's go on. Say there's zero pro-black legislation. You know what that's indicative of? Of the Democratic Party betraying the African American community left and right, making promises to us and never fucking fulfilling
What does
them.
this
Right?
have to do with our
Black,
point?
hold on, no. You're saying you're comparing these two as if like it's like the fact that a bill gets passed is indicative strictly of some sort of. Hold on, let me. Oh my God, let me finish. You'll never forget what I think if you can't let me finish. You'll never figure out. Okay, so like saying that these trans bills getting passed, right? These pro-trans bills, like despite the mountain of anti-trans bills, whatever, right? The fact that some of these things do get passed is indicative of a wider political infrastructure that is like pro-trans community that is more powerful than whatever has black people have managed to build up. But it's as these things aren't one-to-one. That's not how political power works, right? And our history as it stands, right? Our societal interactions and the current conversations, the current political paradigm, like all that plays into this, right? Like it all builds like what is possible at this very moment, right? There are other things, other communities that are suffering right now who aren't getting any fucking attention, right? Do they have no political power, or is it that the conversation has not turned to them? When there's a like it's like how bills get passed addressing something, like addressing like some sort of issue, some sort of national issue, when a tragedy happens, right? Was it a problem beforehand? Yes, it was, but it didn't get addressed until that conversation started. It happens. That's just how it happens. So here's the emergency right now: is that trans people are being murdered. They're being murdered right now. That's the emergency, and that's the one that's got the attention, right? Does that mean that there isn't any other emergencies happening? No, but this is the one that has everyone's attention. And then we have an entrenched opposition talking about it, right? They're less talking about black people, right? And pull up your fucking pants and where are the fathers, right? What they're talking about are trans people, about trans kids and how they're corrupting schools, right? How gender nonconformity will destroy America. That's what they're talking about. So when you bring up this nonsense about the bills, right? As if that fucking means anything, it doesn't. Not for this, not for what we're talking about. And we've strayed so far away from the actual conversation about Dave Chappelle. You strayed
so far away from my question. Do you think it's equal? I was
answering his question, not your question. His question, not your question. You can ask your question.
That was my question too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well then,
he asked the same thing.
All right. Well, then I did answer that question.
I found it, Bill.
What?
Go ahead.
Prime, do you think we know right now whether you think there is more or less political power amongst either black?
You literally didn't listen to anything. You were too busy waiting for your turn to talk to listen to a fucking thing that I said. You didn't listen to any of it. You didn't listen to any of it. When I literally addressed that.
You didn't give an answer at all.
No, you were looking for a yes or no.
You were looking
for a yes or fucking no when I literally addressed all of this. It's not a yes or no question.
No, you didn't.
I literally gave a whole speech about it just now, but you were waiting for your turn to talk and you listen to anything.
You didn't run away from the question.
Sure. Okay, fine, whatever. Cool.
I found a bill that was passed. Unless you don't consider black, if you don't, do you consider prison reform a black issue, black specific issue?
No.
Then
wait, Chris.
Yep.
Who's the majority of people in prison? Who make up the majority of prison?
Disproportionate amount, or
no, not proportionate, not proportionally. Who makes up the majority of prisoners?
I assume white people because they make the majority of.
Okay, so then who's that bill going to affect more as a whole?
But this bill in general was about
Okay,
correcting
it's not
some
black.
of
I'm
those.
sorry. No, I'll just answer your question. No, that's not black specific. Freak out of here.
Yeah,
Hold
yeah,
on, hold
that's
on.
why I didn't go down. That's why I
Okay,
didn't
hold
go
on.
down.
Hey,
because
hold
it's
on. No,
insensitive.
I was just saying I actually do have black specific. I posted a list of black specific one. How about the Emmett Till Unsolved Crime Rights Crime Act, right? It allows criminal cases of violent crimes committed against African Americans for 1970 to be reopened. This was signed by Bush in 2008, or passed in 2007, signed by Bush in 2008.
Has it? I wonder if that's been used whatsoever. But yeah, let me see.
I believe that Emmett Till's case in particular has been opened in the last decade. Yeah.
They
You
opened
said
the,
you posted
they
it.
We
opened
have
the
all the
Atlanta
evidence.
thing.
But nothing happened from that, right? Because that the lady literally confessed that he hadn't.
Yeah,
done
people were
anything.
talking about it. It's I
So
don't know why
nothing's happened
they
from it. So it seemed like it hadn't really
well,
affected anything.
well,
But we'll see.
it was used. It was used. That's what you asked.
I
There's
think
also
it's
Matthew
kind
Shepard.
of silly. Like, I think we kind of got stuck on those whole like final statement of his like special when like it was a
Yeah,
fucking
his
joke,
final
right?
statement
So like,
was
hold on,
not a
the final
joke.
statement. Hold on,
Not
wait,
a
hold on.
joke.
Do you want me to explain the joke to you? Because I understand. It's definitely a joke.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, you know more than
Because
Dave
if
Chappelle. I
you
thought
want,
you were supposed to
if
just
you
listen
want,
to the
okay, you
comedian,
ready for this?
not
Ready?
interpret them. I thought you were supposed to just
Okay.
listen to.
What?
No,
Okay,
his
hold on.
argument. Wait. His argument from the very beginning was that you have to interpret them. You don't just listen directly to the words that were being said. I'm sorry if you misunderstood.
Are
that.
you one of
That's
the
what he
other
said earlier.
geniuses who thinks his last statement was a joke?
No, we're not all geniuses that think his last statement is a joke. We're just people that think his last statement is a joke and it went over your head because you're not cerebral enough to understand it.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Like things
Please
don't
stop
go
using
over
the term
your head.
cerebral.
My
please.
head is rather
Who
normal
said
size.
To be
cerebral
fair,
first?
okay. So, anyways, his last statement, right, where he said like, don't stop punching down on like my people or me or my community, or whatever, was a joke referencing that's what they said to him, and he made it clear because what he believes he does is what I believe Daphne tweeted, which is he punches across the aisle or whatever, right? So the joke is that he's like referencing what they said to him, which he doesn't believe they do, so he doesn't believe what he did.
Wait, it's a little bit
And
bigger
so
than that.
the whole punching down conversation, I think, is like really silly to have. We're getting all into this like really complex shit with like trans law and trans political
Wait.
power. When like
Tom,
Dave
you're
Chappelle in his
missing.
skit is literally he literally had to define what a turf was, right? Like the conversations are so far apart from each other, right? Do you guys recognize that like Dave Chappelle's
No.
like a turf means trans exclusive radical feminism, and then you guys are like, oh my god, trans people have more political power than white people than black people because they have more like legislation than
You don't
and it's like,
understand. No, you don't understand his ending. His ending was to show at how during this period of time, since they do have political power, it's now him not punching down.
I
It's them
don't
punching.
think so.
Yes.
I agree with that. I don't.
think it was
I'm
very
at
clear.
odds with Gambit in this whole convo, and I agree with
That's
him
why
on
he
this.
brought.
I don't
That's why
think
he
so.
brought up. Hey, black people are kind of jealous. They're like, "Damn, I wish we could get some legislation." Like, you missed that part, and that's
Yeah,
cool. I'm not.
that was like the point.
Like, that's what
Yeah,
he's saying.
no, but the whole wait, hold on, because he like okay, so he used this. He said right. Oh, I think Daphne said that the whole you like Dave Chappelle does not punch down on people because to punch down on people you have to think less of them, right? That was like
Yeah.
the whole definition, right? And so like that's the whole point of the like joke.
You don't understand that.
Right?
He's using their ideology.
He's not making a
This is
a
cancel
statement
culture
on like the
ideology.
political power that they have when he says the punching
He
down.
says
joke.
after
I'm not saying that he doesn't
something. It's
before.
not just the tweet. He speaks after that.
Hey,
He makes
Sig,
a plea.
hey, I guess you were right. I'm sorry. I did find out that Emmett Till, like that bill, it was like it was specifically aimed at crimes against African Americans. And it was used once. There was a guy that had fatally shot a man in Alabama in 1964. Yeah, and he pled guilty and he got 6 months for fatally shooting and killing a person for peacefully protesting. He got 6 months in prison for it after pleading guilty. So I guess that was a bill, and that's literally the only successful prosecution. I guess you're right. I guess I don't know. I guess you're right. We have a lot of political power there.
I mean, my argument wasn't that we had a lot of political power. Okay, the argument you said, okay, fanatic. You just said, show me anything targeting African Americans, any legislation to help African Americans in 20 years, and I did.
So, can you answer the question? Do you think the power is equal or different? And if it's different, do you think it's more or less? Can you answer the question?
I don't know. I actually think this is a very complicated. No. This literally. Okay. Well, how do you gauge fucking political power? First of all, okay. Like Fanatic
All
is
they
saying
do
that
the
Fanatic is
political-
saying
all
that
they do
we
the
have
legislation.
Fanatic
People
is
that
making,
wield
All they do
hold
the
on, hold on,
legislation
Fanatic,
that's passed. That's
wait,
how I would gauge
that-
it.
Fanatic makes the claim. Fanatic makes the claim that they have more than we do. Okay, I think Fanatic
Yes,
makes the
I
claim that they
agree
have
with
more than we do, and I would say that I don't think that we actually have enough to gauge that. I don't actually think that we have enough to do. All I'm saying is that I don't think he has enough to prove. That's why I was asking him, like, how do you gauge this? How do you measure these things? I was asking him, like, hey, what would you be your standards for this?
The passage of legislation. That's what I said from the very
Yes.
beginning. Was that
Right, I know
ever
that, but
confusing?
I'm saying that I don't think that's enough.
Yeah,
okay, to prove that.
What would be another factor then? If that's not the greatest indicator
When-
of political power, then tell me what the next one would. What else would you use generally? What else would we possibly be going off of to
Those who
determine
wield it.
political
Those
power?
who are
What the frick are we
appointed.
talking about? What
Those
is
who are
more
appointed,
indicative
those
of
who
politics than the
wield it.
passage of legislation? What the hell is going on?
It's not
Because
that.
Fanatic,
What
but
type of
Fanatic, you even
legislation is
said,
being
okay,
passed?
Fanatic, you even said there are circumstances. Fanatic, you said that there are circumstances about political power where, like, you don't need to have political power to get legislation passed. We talked about the Civil Rights Act, right? That entire decade during the whole 1960s and everything, of how, like, there's a whole ton of legislation passed specifically to target and help African Americans, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have political power. Okay,
so
especially
yes, what
during
I'm
that
pointing out
time.
to you. Okay, fine. So there's two things that can pass it, right? One would be political power, and the second one would be literal threat of violence that caused people to feel like they're harmed, that they weren't safe. Can you point to something equivalent to the long hot summer of 1967 that the LGBTQ has been able to demonstrate? If not, then it sounds like that de
talking about
facto
trans people,
results
not-
straight back to political
Wait,
power.
wait,
or
if
defaults, not de facto. Defaults back to raw political power. So it's either
then-
raw political power or literal threats of physical violence that were literally causing people to feel unsafe in the streets. So if we don't have that, then it defaults back to political power. So
we're
in this case, try to compare those two, and when we obviously recognize that the threat of physical violence in a long hot summer of 1967 is not present now, so it seems like we should be able to default to political power when it comes to the LGBTQ community. Does that all of that make sense or not, Sig?
Understand why y'all having a hard time conceding this. We're not
A
saying
hard
that we're
time conceding
against-
what? That trans individuals have more political power? First and foremost, right? Like we're talking about now. Obviously, slavery largely happened to black individuals. If we're going to go to the origin, of course, black people had less political power in the past. We're talking about now. We're talking about now. When you go to a grocery
exactly what
store,
we're talking
Gambit,
about
when
now.
you hang around outside, how often are you perceived as a threat? It does happen. It happens a lot. Guess what? It happens more to trans individuals. And it happens even more, yes, to trans black individuals or trans people of color. What we're saying is that trans individuals have a hard life. Some would say a hard life to live.
I'm so
and they
sorry.
don't
I was reading.
see it as a
Can you
choice.
repeat one thing? You said what happens more to trans individuals? What does?
They're discriminated against more in their everyday life.
Do you have any numbers to suggest or support that?
So tell me what's otherwise, Fanatic. Because I feel like right now you're on a panel speaking down on trans individuals, and it's allowed. You've been doing it for like an hour and a half.
Speaking
But
down
imagine
how?
if we did this about black
How
people.
is it speaking down to say somebody has power?
What
do you
political
actually do?
power?
You understand? Do
What
you understand the
political
words that
power?
are coming out of your own
How
mouth?
many legislators do we have or
You know
trans
what they're
individuals
talking about.
that speak about trans
I'm not
issues?
engaging with that. I'm sorry, Wiggle. Your brain is not functioning. I can't interact with that. Let's move on.
I thought-
Anyone else? Does anyone else got? Hold on. Let me just make sure. Chris, Sig, Top, anyone else? Does it sound like I'm talking down on the trans community in order to say that they have more political power? Would
Yes.
that not be? Would that not
Yes.
be uplifting them?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
asking everyone
you're
else without a
talking
brain.
down-
Wiggle.
You're using it in a derogatory
I'm
sense.
talking to everyone else who I believe still possibly has a brain. This is their test.
Fanatic, the Megamind.
Sig,
I don't think so.
Sig, thank you. I didn't think so. Top.
Fanatic,
Sig, does that
the Megamind.
Sig, does that
The proliferator of trans issues.
Sig, can
on
you answer the
Twitch.
question, please? Can you answer the question, please?
I
Does
don't-
that
I
sound
don't-
like
I
I'm
don't
talking
Community
down to them?
claps. Thank you.
Huh?
Thank
I
you
don't
for gracing
specifically.
us.
I don't
Fanatic.
specifically think. I don't specifically
think
think
so.
that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Hold
that
on,
means
hold
that.
on.
Chris,
talking
what
down.
about you? Wiggle, you know your brain ain't working. Shut up, bro. You're actually being completely idiotic. Stop
I don't
it.
agre. I don't
You're
agree with
embarrassing
Fanatic
yourself.
at
Imagine
all,
how you
but
treat
I
me
don't
if I was
think
Hold
he's
trans.
on.
reasonable enough.
Why? I'm sorry. Why? I'm sorry. Why does Fanatic get to limit this conversation to just talking about political power and like, oh, am I uplifting the trans community now? Aren't I uplifting them when you've been defending fucking Dave Chappelle and his garbage display on Netflix? That guy? Yes, you have been you are the arbiter. You are the arbiter of trans rights here. No, certainly, sir. Sorry for anyone ever questioning
the conversation directly around them. That was an unfounded accusation levied by Wiggle, and since Wiggle said something ridiculous, I had to make sure that I wasn't crazy because he's gaslighting me with his stupidity. And I'm like, wait, hold on.
How am I gaslighting you at all?
It can't possibly be
you don't understand
by
terms.
literally any person that I'm talking down to them by saying they have more influence and power. I thought I wasn't crazy, and now I see he's literally the only person out of how many people are here? 7 out of 7 people. He's the only moron that would think that I'm talking down to them by saying they have more power. The freak are you talking about?
In relation to other
nations. This is the point we don't need to go down.
So I have a question, okay? So just really quick, something really simple. What do you guys think the like if you were to like give like a one sentence on like the point of Dave, like what was his point he was trying to get across with his special? What do you think it is?
Are you asking everyone or just two?
Yeah, whoever. I have my answer, but
you want to? I mean, my answer. Oh God, can I say this in one strong thing? Jesus Christ! I would just say that the man believes that that he's against mainly white people, not trans.
That's the whole point of the special.
Huh? If I could say it in only one sentence, I think that's a dumb thing to say just one sentence. But I think that his main arguments are against white people and not trans people. It's a lot of it was defending himself against what he was saying in his previous special.
3 sentences. Sum it up in 3.
Okay, all right, all that. Sure, great. All right, then Wiggle.
Oh yeah. I can't. The 3 sentences, I'll say one is obviously money. Like one is obviously money. The next would be that he wants individuals to believe on his takes about trans individuals, and that's why he emboldens Daphne, because Daphne to him is the ideal trans individual, and he wants all trans individuals to be like Daphne. There.
Okay. GSU.
So I think the point of the special was to humanize trans people while also pointing out some of the things that we as the Black community wish we had. One is political power.
Chris?
I agree. Humanize trans people and highlight the he's talking about white issues more than that. That his problem is with white individuals more. I just think he did it badly, terribly, in a garbage way.
Fanatic.
I would say 1 was to humanize trans people. 2 was to
Can you speak louder, please?
I'm sorry. 1 was to humanize. See, once I go from yelling to super quiet.
Yeah.
1 was to humanize trans people. I would say number 2 would be to demonstrate a different form of intersectionality, like a beneficial form of intersectionality. And I think the third thing is just I just really to make the conversation that like about their political power versus Black political power. Thanks, Dolphin, for saving this conversation.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Do you want to go?
Yeah. I think that the quote unquote humanize trans individuals, but strictly on his terms, right? Exactly what Wiggle said, right? Like he used that example of Daphne, right? Of the good trans, right? The trans who's doing it right. And counteracting that to what do you know? The people who don't like him, right? And aren't they bad? Aren't they so unreasonable, right? And Dave just did nothing wrong. He was just innocent. He was innocent, and only he was just misunderstood. But Daphne in all her greatness, right? And like R.I.P. to this woman, right? But like in all her glory, she saw through the heart of him, right? Under all those terrible, shitty trans jokes, under all the actual dehumanization that he was doing, right? Under all that, it's a heart of gold. I want you to know that.
All right. So I personally think it's like really simple. I think he wanted to do 2 things with this special. One was you guys say humanize trans people, and that's like a really good way to put it. But like I think he said best is like for people to understand not to necessarily understand people, trans people, but to empathize with trans people and realize they're having a human experience just like them. Is like the words he used. And the second thing I think that he was trying to do was to I think his goal, and like I don't think he accomplished this goal, but I think his second goal of this conversation was to try and make amends with the trans community. 100%, which is why like at the end of his special he says, hey, like no more jokes about trans people till I make sure I'm laughing with you and not at you, because I know what it's like to be laughed at and not with, right? Describing literally why he left $50 million for Comedy Central, whatever, the Chappelle show. And I think that like, and I think the second goal he didn't reach, because obviously like trans community is like more against him probably than they've ever been. But I think it's crazy that we can all like look at this body of work and be like, oh yeah, the point of his show was to humanize trans people. Prime's the only one who kind of pushed back against that. I guess we'll go too. Was to humanize trans people, but like obviously like he's just a transphobic terrible person, and the whole special was just made to like to go against trans people. I think it's kind of ridiculous, and to like fight back against the like he wants trans people to be acknowledged on his term and Daphne's the good trans. I think, and like maybe this is just me not like trying to read into it, right? Maybe I'm not cerebral enough to understand his motivations. I think he just like likes Daphne as an individual. He said like she's a comedian, I'm a comedian, I like her, right? And obviously people who happen to be trans people, the trans community, who did her wrong, right? Like or attacked her on the internet, and that's not cool. But I don't think there was this like necessarily underlying thing that like all trans people need to be like Daphne, right? I think he just like is like advocating for all people, both trans and non-trans, to just be more empathetic.
Like bigots
That
do
one
this.
positive portrayal.
Yeah,
of a
bigots do this
trans
all the time. Like,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was so impressed with what Wiggle said previously, right at the very start of this, right? Because like, like bigots do this like on the regular. They'll say like, "Oh, you know what? I was in a bar." And I talked. No, you know what? Who did this? Bill fucking O'Reilly. He did this, right? He actually did this when he went to, there's like a famous restaurant in New York. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, right? He went to this famous restaurant in New York that's like a black owned one, right? And he sat down, had a meal, and he came back and told about this, right? This great adventure, right? I came back, and black people were just like sitting calmly and talking to each other. They weren't loud or anything like that. It was amazing. I was just like, wow, really? That's just like, that was just like an amazing moment where I got to connect with them. That's exactly this thing, right? Like I was at a bar, I met a black person. I had a conversation about football, and guess what? Black people are so bad. And it's so bad, right? If only the ones who like, if only all the rest of them, you know, weren't causing so much trouble, right? Like there's the good blacks who are here who do what we tell them to, right? And then there's the bad blacks that come down from the north and demand that they be able to vote, right? Like, don't come here and stir up our blacks. This is
But Prime, what he did was he allowed for the conversations we're having now. He speaks to so many
I think
people.
this is so disingenuous. I agree with you, Wiggle, about a lot of stuff about this, but I don't agree with this point. Like he even mentioned the point where he made a joke and she didn't like it, and she like looked at him and spoke out against him, saying that you have to like you don't have to like understand what I'm saying. You just have to understand that I'm having a human experience. And he said that she looked at him like she wasn't like they weren't friends anymore. Right. I think that like other than this, like he talked about her other than this special. This is like he brought up her like before this.
Trans individuals are humans. Yes. Yes.
I mean,
I'm glad we can agree.
Wait, he talked about this specifically, like Chris says. Like he talks about her specifically as another comedian, right? Like he would talk about any other comedian. He doesn't do it in like a special way because she's trans. He does bring up that she's
class
trans
above everybody else. The comedian
like,
class.
This also he brought up another trans person that he said that he's like good friends with now. That is, I think that's the point, right? That's his point was to bring up about this is especially for a lot of black people, like in general, right? He's had he just had this one experience with this person because he's never experienced like these people on that level, right? And that's true for black people across like a large majority of black people in general. What am I saying? People in general. Right, to have this positive interaction.
But this is just like Fanatic was talking about with like prison. Is that like the majority when he was talking about the numbers? The majority of the people that watch Dave Chappelle and like him are white. So why are you referring to it as like he's making this for black people? He's making this largely for white people because that's how he's making his money.
I just said it people in general, right? I just changed that.
Okay, good.
Also, yeah, in the middle of what I was talking about, I'm just thinking of black people in general because it's black panel. But like in general, right? Having this positive interaction with this person, right? Speaking it about them, like not even he didn't like the whole time speak about them positively the whole time. He cracked jokes, right? Mentioned that she would crack jokes back at him too, or like things like that. Like it didn't say like all trans people had to be this way because he mentioned a trans person before who wasn't that way, who actually called him out, and he said he was friendly with now, even though she like pushed back against him. Right? I don't think that's the point. I just think he was like bringing up somebody he cared about, that he it made him grow as a person, and I think that's important for like a lot of people who don't have this experience. I was thinking because like if I was like say this is me in high school, right? Where I never I didn't have a trans experience, experience any trans people in my life at all whatsoever, like absolutely zero. The opinions that I had were absolutely toxic, and but I didn't think about that myself, right? I didn't think that they were all that toxic. I didn't think they're all that bad, right? I never I heard people talk about trans people in this way. So if that was me, a teenager that year, hearing Dave Chappelle talk about this person that he had this experience with, right? That person, I don't know these type of people. It's mentioned that she, I would, he said, she's a woman, right? He didn't misgender, he tried hard not to, even though he would make some jokes like that. But he mentioned that trans women are women, right? Just to hear that in general, right? That would have been a shock to me hearing that from my favorite comedian of all time, being back in high school when I had these transphobic thoughts, that I didn't realize were transphobic. Right, hearing these things come from this person, hear him talking about. They mentioned that I didn't remember the part where he separated gender from sex, but hearing that as a teenager, right? You for the first time where you don't experience these things, you're not on Twitter, you're not on people aren't on Google up here searching about trans rights and trans experiences and stuff like that. They're not doing that. So I'm telling you, 90% of my family, almost 100% of them are going to be watching this special because everybody I know watches Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, which is why it's insane.
First time any of them hear anything about any of these things. And yes, I think some of it is really problematic and it might come off the wrong. But I think there's some good that they can learn from this, that they can pull out of this that might elevate their level of thinking. That's what I think that,
and what you're pointing out is why it's crazy that Wiggle said he's not making this for black people. You pointed out that it's consumed more by white people. That's almost every art form in America. We were talking about the black lady that released the music and she wanted it for black people, but more white people bought it. By your own logic, you have to say no, she was making it for white people. No, he was making this for black people. We just live in America where we're the minority. So
but isn't that the argument with bills that are for prison reform? They're for white people because there's more white people in prison. Wasn't that the argument being made?
I mean, hold on. Dave is aware of the white.
No,
I saw you nodding your head at that.
No, yes, and what you're saying is silly. What you're talking about now is what were the motivations.
I'm talking about your own statements. And yeah,
no, you're not. No, these things aren't analogous at all. You're now talking about what was the motivation for this to be passed versus what was the motivation for Dave
Chappelle to make a comedy skit that would be on Netflix.
So everyone who makes the comedy skit on so it's impossible now to make a Netflix special for
it's not. No, it's not. It's not impossible.
So what makes him distinctly different from whatever the hell you would consider possible?
Because when he made this skit, it was for Netflix, and he didn't specify that it was for black people. So I would imagine it was for Americans.
Now he has to in the opening say, "Hey, this is for black people." So if he doesn't say this is for black, wait. So if he doesn't say this is for black people in the opening, it's not for black people.
I never said the opening. I said he made this for society, not for black people. There are black people in society.
He mentioned
we absolutely can't read his mind or know his complete and utter intentions, okay? And I feel like arguing about that is ridiculous. All I can say is that he put it out there, and there was a prominent white gaze. I mean, you can presume that he knows at least about that, right? That mostly white people are going to watch this. Yeah, you can presume.
That's going to happen with everything that you put out.
That's why he left his other show.
And that exactly everything that we're putting out right now, probably mostly white people watching it. Okay,
exactly. And Prime, you're doing this for white people, not black people. All black everything. You construct it for us to come together and talk about our issues. You were doing that shit for white people.
We actually hold on.
That's how dumb these statements are.
No, it's not about. It doesn't matter. Attention. Hold on. We're not saying Nobody's saying that the intention is what matters. Okay, it's the
No,
material.
Prime's whole intention for streaming is for
Even
black
if
people.
It says all black
But the
panels.
white
Hold on,
ladies,
hold on,
really.
Prime,
Eminently
even
says
Prime- Wait, this
he's
is ridiculous.
talking about
Even if
black
Prime
issues when he
intended-
talks about black issues, and then he's saying he dedicates panels to specific minorities at different times when he's streaming.
No, he's
And then
lying. He
references
knows
the
this is gonna be consumed by
Even
non-black
if
people.
Prime,
No
Listen,
fucking-
he made no. It's wiggle.
what
It's wiggle. It's called
discourses. Is this
wiggle.
what
Wiggle. It's called the All Black Everything panel because all of the people that are featured on the panel are black, but it's literally intended for white people.
No, it's
I
intended.
mean, I wouldn't make
hold
the
on,
jump
Prime,
that it's
Prime,
intended for
only
white people.
Prime knows
But,
no,
He's
uh,
making.
How do you know?
only Prime
He's
knows
not
this.
serious.
hold on,
Maybe
wait.
because I've worked
Only
with
Prime knows
Prime.
this.
So to be fair, in the media space, right? Black media isn't intended just for black people, but it generally just has more black viewership than the white alternative, right? So Dave Chappelle is gonna have more black viewers, like percentage wise, and probably numbers wise, than someone like Bo Burnham, who's like a white comedian, right? So you can't say that he's like not a comedian like geared towards black people, because they're gonna be like a much larger portion of like his viewer base than like any white comedian on Netflix who has a special, right?
So are we talking about intention, or are we talking about like what's going to end up happening, right? Because like if someone gets to above a certain level of fame, they're just going to get majority white audiences as long as they're in a Western. I mean, is that not just like a fact?
And then you notice that in their work.
There was
Right.
one problem I wanted to mention though. A lot of like far right, like reactionary people on YouTube are using this as like ammunition for their agendas or whatever. Like regardless of what Dave Chappelle says in this special, even if he speaks out against white people and like white privilege and all this stuff, they are using these things to further their talking points. They are using these things to like bring people in. Like, look at this cancel culture. They're trying to cancel Dave again, right? And like bring them into these talking points and like these ideas. Like I'm seeing all the usuals come up and like they're getting tons of views and like they're getting tons of engagement. And I don't think even Dave Chappelle would intend for that to be the case, right? That he would intend for his message. He wanted his message to be used that way, but it is. If you got Ben Shapiro using your what's happening to you as a black person to further the white agenda, like that's an issue. And I think that's a problem. I think he should be thinking about these things when he does a special, when he brings up these things. How can this be used against me? Because he thought about that when it came to the Chappelle show, right? That's why he left. So I think going forward with more specials, you should still be thinking about.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by chat. Okay. Okay. All right. So look, I think we hit it. I think we just hit it pretty hard, both from the panel and the chat. Oh boy.
Chat too.
Okay. Well, that's a thing. So, to my audience, we are going to continue on. We are going to go to the open walk-on panel. It's like yes, you may take part. Join the Discord server and go in a little bit later once we let in. So we'll be doing that soon enough, right? So, but we're gonna have more content coming your way. No need to leave, okay? Hit that follow button right now if you've been enjoying this. If you come in here enjoying the fight, hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. It is 6 nights a week. Don't you want to miss out. !social in the chat for our social media. Twitter is where you'll find channel updates. Discord is where you'll find fucking everything, right? The open panel is going to be there, right? We're going to have that conversation. That's where you can join in for the offline and online conversations. Be a part of the community. It's a lot of fun. I'd love to see you there. And on YouTube is where you'll find the VOD of this. So if you want more, if you've ever missed anything, go there, like, comment, and subscribe. Okay. We will give an exit to the all black everything. Well, I swear to God, I did not realize that I mislabeled this fucking stream. That shit's been there. It's been saying the reverie the entire time. I completely I mislabeled the fuck. I didn't.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, I
Listen,
just.
No,
It's been
no.
Reverie
Let's
this
just
whole
call this the
time.
Reverie.
that's
More
it.
people are gonna
This
watch.
is this is
When
the
we get to
Reverie
the
now.
world where the
I'm
Okay?
actually
reverie is all
sad that he's
niggas,
right about that.
if the reverie only ever becomes all niggas, you know we won at that
We
point.
won.
That's political. This is political power. How many black
That's
people
it.
are on
Yes.
are on Prime streams at
That's
once?
Yes.
literally
This
how
is
you
Any
do
true.
it.
point. We found it. This is the measure. All right.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna give an intro to these individuals, but the content does not end. We're gonna continue that content soon, so stick around. We'll start with Top Dolphin. Top Dolphin, thanks for coming in for the fight. As always, you're always ready to give and take. Really appreciate it, my friend. Top, how you feeling?
Oh, my heart rate has been up. I've been like, I got way more heated. I expected to get heated, but for a little bit there, I got way more heated than I've ever been before. But no, I just want to say that like at the end of the day, I think Fanatic was right. I think this special was terrible because people just aren't cerebral enough to engage with it. Like that's all I can say. Because like we're having a conversation with people who are like we're probably like the top 0.01% of people who understand trans issues in the world, right? Or in the United States, and y'all don't even get half this shit. So there's no way that like my mom when she pulls this shit up is gonna understand what he's talking about. I think. But no, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. At the end of the day, Dave Chappelle just wants people to empathize with people and doesn't want people to try to cancel people on the internet because culture just ends up hurting people like Daphne and not like the other people around. And if you want to find me or like find my content, I'm twitch.tv/Top Dolphin. I have like a YouTube and stuff. You can find it from my Twitch. And I'm mostly on Prime Panel, so watch here and you'll see me more.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, X Curbs, for resubbing at for your Prime Gaming at 10 months. Thank you so much for that. Helps a lot. Let's go to Sig Natural. Glad you're here. Always glad you're here, right? But you delivered as you always do. Sig, tell me what about yourself.
Hey everybody, Sig Natural. I'm on Twitch, mainly on panels, mainly just on this panel. Like honestly, mainly just this panel. It's very great, and I'm happy to be here. I had a great discussion. Okay, I didn't get nearly as mad as I thought I would. Honestly, some of y'all got mad in a place that I didn't expect y'all to go. But honestly, I was pretty all to put it together because I just kind of knew what to expect here. All the takes were pretty much. I understood where everyone's coming from, and that's something that I don't always to get to understand. I get where everybody's coming from, and I feel like that's fine, even though a lot of you are fucking wrong. Okay, god damn. But yeah, anyway, you guys have very good one.
All right, next we go Wiggle. This has been like Wiggle has not forgotten how to put up a fight. He has not forgotten how to rip a motherfucker's face off. All right, still got the claws.
You see all the people that are upset. You see them moving around, struggling like this nigga.
Thank you, Wiggle, for coming back. For that, that was really great. That was actually a fantastic interaction.
It was Gambit that invited me. Like Gambit invited me twice. This one I accepted. You know, that's what it did. First and foremost, thank you, Prime for having me here. Thank you, Gambit, for inviting me. Chris, I will say that like, damn, bro, like you have such a like an even keeled tone that it feels really hard to like lower myself to speak to you, like my tone, because I feel like I have to respect you. I feel like I can't just be like, because like when you're like, that's not what I meant, it hurts a little. It's like it hurts a little bit more. All right, I want to say like whatever you're doing, keep it up. Sig, thank you. We were the trenches. Thank you. Top Dolphin, give it. Fanatic. I must say, anytime I'm on here, y'all niggas get me heated, and I know that must be my effect on all three of you. So that makes for a great panel. So like, thank you guys for being here. And the J Cooks Nada, never met them before. They're awesome. I wish they saw the rest of the special was kind of like critical to it. Wake the Beast. It was like, damn, it was like a mythical dragon appearing on the screen. I was not expecting it. This man came, he delivered, but who expected anything less?
Thank you, Wiggle. Seriously, this was amazing. Let's go to Chris Cosmo next. Chris, you've been making fans left and right. Chris, thank you for being part of this and mixing it up with all the rest of us.
Yes, this was fun. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, Wiggle, I can't help it. People keep telling me all the time, like my tone is like is too even, too chill. Like I'm too like even killed. Like and like I don't know. That's just me. Like I can't. Like I've been trying to push the aggressiveness, but it just feels fake. Like when I try to do it. Like you know what I mean. So like yeah. I mean, there's that. I enjoyed this a lot. I am like becoming a fan of like Wake the Beast. Yo, like I think he like what Dave Chappelle is trying to do in this special. I think Wake the Beast just does better. Like there's some things I vehemently disagree with this man on, right? But there are so many points that the way he like addresses some things, the way he says some things, and the things he brings up that was so insightful, that was so like real and knowledgeable, that it's just hard. Like, and he like it's so fun to listen to him. Like, go check his channel out. Like, there's some things that may be problematic, but there's some like good things you can get out of it. Right. Other than that, like I have fun. I can't wait to do this again. Follow me at Chris Cosmo with a 0 at the end. I'll be doing some art stuff next week. Right.
Thank you, Gambit. Gambit, thank you. Just like special shout out for helping put this together. Really appreciate it. Right, this is like a community type thing, right? So when people help out, like actually, it's huge. Gambit, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for grabbing Wiggle. Right, that helped make my day today. Honestly, right. Gambit has, just so you know, Gambit has contributed a lot to all of this. And I'm ecstatic. Doesn't matter if we're yelling at each other. Doesn't matter. I'm always ecstatic to have this man around. In fact, I'm even happier when we're yelling. Gambit, tell them about yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, I'm not on mute, am I? No, I'm not. Okay. Yeah, so man, this is the thing. I knew this special was gonna be great to me when most of my Facebook timeline hated it. I was like, oh, it's got to be amazing because this is the chaos culture. I literally posted a status and I said, Dave Chappelle has to be a 10 out of 10 because too many of y'all niggas dislike it. But this is the thing. So even though I knew I liked it, I understood that to have this conversation, it shouldn't just be a whole bunch of people that are sucking each other off saying, yo, Dave Chappelle is great. So that's why you can actually say I reached out to him specifically because I knew he might disagree. Just like Wiggle, I knew he might disagree with stuff. I knew Prime was going to disagree for sure. So like, and I think this is a part of what Dave is trying to do, trying to have a real conversation. So even though like this topic, you know, some people might not like it, I felt it was most important to not just have a whole bunch of panel of people who are going to say, yo, Dave Chappelle is great. I wanted to hear the feedback from the people who disagree. Now they say absolute nonsense, and that's why we won. But but I do think it's important that you know, to have like complicated conversation like this. But to the trans community, as always, we support y'all. Like y'all do have more political power, and if that makes you mad, I don't understand it. But yeah, I love the special overall, and everybody should watch and inform your own opinion and not have your opinion formed for you. But Prime, appreciate it always. You can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/GSU Gambit. Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, we have Fanatic. Fanatic of these takes. Oh man. God damn it. Why has it gotta be this way? You gotta take the good with the bad and the dog shit. Anyway, Fanatic, I appreciate you again, no matter if I disagree heavily. I appreciate your takes. I appreciate your perspective, because even when I disagree, and this is for a lot of people, right? Like, and well, these are people who are like particularly intelligent, but I don't disagree with them, right? Even if I'm like on the other side of it, I'll end up learning something, you know, right? I'll learn something about my position, learn something about their position, right? I can walk away and like have a better idea, even if I haven't changed, I have a better idea as to what to do in the future, right? And I like this happens with you all the time, with Gambit all the time.
Wait, you cut out
Your
Prime.
audio.
Oh,
Why
fuck
you
me.
Counterpoints is not even here. What are you doing?
Nice.
You just gonna counterpunch that?
Yeah,
thing?
that's what.
No,
That's,
we literally can't hear you.
can you
Even
hear?
if
You
still
can't hear me
talking.
now?
We hear nothing.
Nothing. Oh, okay. Hold on one
It
second.
made a sound before it cut out.
Hold on, audience. Discord is fucking up. Like, just like completely fucked up on me. Hello. Hi. Hey. Can you hear me now? You can't hear me now. Can you hear me? No. Oh, fuck me. Yeah, Discord just shitted out on me. Like, oh yeah, yeah. It's like no route. Hold on. 1 second. Discord literally just shit on me. Let me try. One second. Let me try changing the location. Like that sucks. I was being all heartfelt and shit. Oh, hold on. Let's do a region override. Let's do that. Central. Let's try that. Save changes. All right. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Discord like just shit it out of me. It was like I don't know. It like couldn't figure out the proper region placement. Whatever. Anyway, try it again. I was about being all heartfelt and shit. Anyway, that's my fault. That's my fault.
Got so hard in the paint.
Anyway, I was just saying that for people like Fnatic, like Gambit, like Wiggle, like a whole bunch of individuals. When I end up disagreeing with Top Dolphin, because I end up disagreeing with him a lot too, right? Chris, sorry, I agree with you too much. But like for the people I disagree with, I think you guys are really smart individuals, and I learned something. When we have these conversations, whether my opinion changes or not. And so, thank you. So, Fnatic, go ahead.
Listen, let y'all know right now. Yeah, these conversations, where they going?
Closer to the mic. He'll get it one day.
My bad. Listen, my blood pressure does something when I'm in these conversations. I feel like literally everything that I'm frustrated about in life comes out in these conversations. I swear to y'all, I am a very passive nigga in real life, like legitimately. Like I'm just kind of real chill and just whatever, just kind of go with the flow. And in here, it's like I just be fighting for my life or so. I don't know what the freak is going on. What I will say is, I believe, yeah, man. I don't know. I know Jesse Lee Peterson he's not a white woman, but he got destroyed today. It was pretty freaking crazy. I'm legitimately afraid that he might not release the footage. It's really freaking crazy. I'm really excited about that. I can't wait for y'all niggas to see that footage. Top Dolphin, you are my favorite on the panel today. I love you to death. You're absolutely amazing. Wiggle, you and I are literally oil and water. We do not mix, but it's absolutely necessary because I think I can be, especially on a panel, like really, really forceful, and I feel like you are just not a nigga to let me get my way. And so I feel like it's really good to get that pushback. Chris, y'all, I just love all y'all on the panel. I really do appreciate today's conversation. I really do think Dave Chappelle is the GOAT, and I think he really does like care about trans people in general. And I think like just simply referring to Daphne step for the trans from literally the most of our entire life. So I think it's really freaking huge that he did that. Appreciative of him for helping to normalize so that we can actually start moving forward with more productive conversation, how we can better assimilate and make sure that the culture is marginal. I do wish that the trans use their political power to help, considering they have so very much. It seems they're a little bit less pushy with that thing. Anyway, you can follow me twitch.tv/Fnatic, YouTube, Ask Fnatic, music, just the Fnatic. It's all spelled with a Q. Prime, from now on, whenever you introduce me, I want you to say last but longest. I'm streaming on twitch.tv/MrFnatic, and you can find all my content there and all of my links there. I'll be doing more music soon. I didn't do any links today, but you know what I'm saying? Y'all know where. All right.
No. All right. So, okay. All right. I know a lot of people want to continue this conversation. So we're going to continue it on the open walk-on panel. And
I'm scared. Bro.
Oh boy. Oh man. Yeah, let's have it open walk-on. Let's try to chill the fuck out. It won't happen. But anyway, thank you all for the kindness and for the support. All that helps us out. All right. We'll continue.
Can I plead with your community real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
If y'all give Prime a hype train, I'll come on the open and let y'all yell at me.
Okay.
Prime has to get a hype train.
All right. I love to see it. Love to hear it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we are going to go on to our open walk-on panel right after this. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thank you for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and so much of your passion with my community. I know they appreciate it just as much as I do. Have a good one.